Agriculture, huh? Sounds poor. Just completely mismatched with our family. My future mother-in-law said to me during a family meeting. I was well aware that my fiancé was the heir to a prestigious company. And I thought I understood what it meant to become his wife, how challenging it could be. But the words of my future mother-in-law were more cutting than I expected. She looked down upon my grandparents, who raised me, as mere country farmers. The arrogant future mother-in-law always stayed true to herself. This did not change even during the family meeting we had with my grandpa. However,
Emily, haven't you realized?
The shocking past revealed by my future father-in-law. Hearing this, the pride of my future mother-in-law was shattered. My life has been a whirlwind in the first half. Now as an adult, I sometimes feel that way. My name is Serena, I'm 27. As a child, after losing my parents one after the other, my grandparents raised me. My dad passed away from illness in my first year, and my mom suddenly disappeared in a car accident when I was in 4th grade. I somewhat understood my dad's death because others told me, but I fully comprehended my mom's. Perhaps due to the difference in my age, I had somehow moved on from my dad's death. But accepting my mom's took much longer. Supported by my grandparents, I believe I've overcome the sadness of being without my parents as I grew up. And they gave me unlimited love. To ensure I didn't struggle, they put me through college, always prioritizing me. I'm currently working as a professional in a company. In this industry-leading and long-established company, there are various people. But I never imagined I'd meet the president's son. Let alone date him.
Serena, would you date me?
Tyler was one of the employees seconded from a subsidiary to the head office. Only a few people in the company knew Tyler was the president's son. I didn't know until Tyler and I started dating and he confided in me.
Dad said to work at the head office, but I wanted to see every part of the company for the future.
Really?
I believe in the necessity of starting from the bottom, even if it's not quite apprenticeship.
Tyler and I participated in various projects together. He always worked more earnestly than anyone, taking on even the smallest tasks. When needed, he could lead and inspire the team. So kind, yet strong and dependable.
Marry me.
On our 2nd anniversary. At the aquarium, our first date spot, Tyler knelt down and proposed to me. It was a classic proposal.
I'd be honored.
With happiness and a bit of shyness, I accepted his proposal. When I told my grandparents, they cried with joy.
Serena is getting a family again.
It's like gaining another grandchild. My grandparents were looking forward to meeting Tyler. Having the family grow seemed like their greatest joy. I lost my parents, but my grandparents had lost their child. Our home lost its liveliness, and all of us tried unconsciously not to be weighed down by sorrow. For our family, my marriage was a very bright topic. I planned to bring Tyler home to meet my grandparents soon, but first, we had a family meeting with Tyler's family. Tyler's parents' home is, in essence, the president's house. That alone made me nervous. Moreover, the house we visited was magnificent from the entrance, and the interior was spacious and beautiful.
Nice to meet you. I'm Serena.
Oh, so you're the one.
Serena, is it?
Emily, my future mother-in-law, was cold from the beginning. Or rather, she had no intention of welcoming me in the first place. Emily is the president's wife. Going back in time, she was also a president's daughter. As Tyler told me, our company was originally founded by Emily's ancestors, and her grandfather and father had been presidents in succession. Tyler's dad, Kent, the current president, took over the company.
I'll do my best too. But in our house, Mom's dominance always prevails. Dad and I are overshadowed at home.
Tyler had hinted at Emily's nature beforehand, but the real thing was more impactful. Emily eloquently spoke about her family history. How she was raised in a distinguished family, maintaining her dignity. And how much effort she put into Tyler's education as a mother.
Tyler attended the same elite school as me and our entire family. Yes. Not just yes, Serena. Do you understand what that means?
Hey, Emily.
Kent, be quiet.
Shrugging off Kent's attempt to calm her, Emily glared at me.
Do you understand the value of the school that Tyler and I attended, Serena? The kind of privileged people who should attend there? What do you think? Mom!
Tyler also stood up, leaning towards Emily. But Emily, unfazed, turned her criticism towards Tyler.
Tyler, you had such a wonderful environment and connections. How could you choose someone like her as a marriage partner? Hey, that's rude to Serena. Rude? Tyler, I'm disappointed. After everything we've given you. Enough about the house, the family, please. Yes, it's supposed to be a happy occasion. You all be quiet.
What was supposed to be a meeting for the upcoming marriage turned into a family argument. I couldn't intervene, and in the end, Kent somehow managed to calm Emily down. On our way out, Kent desperately apologized to me. It's okay. I'm sorry for troubling you today.
No, it's not your fault. It's our fault.
The disappointment I felt seemed less than the shock Tyler and Kent experienced. Kent approved of the marriage, but Emily only reluctantly accepted it, not welcoming me. Whenever I joined family meals as a fiancé, Emily would sigh and express her discontent. Once, she asked about my family. I told her the truth, not hiding anything. How I lost my parents early and was raised by my grandparents. How we overcame sadness together, the three of us, supporting each other. How my grandparents worked hard in agriculture so I wouldn't have to struggle.
I am nothing but grateful to my grandparents. I believe my parents are watching over us, but the love I received from my grandparents who were actually there for me, I still remember it strongly.
I conveyed my feelings. The rest was up to how Emily felt about it. I hoped she would understand, even a little, but I was naive.
Agriculture, huh? Sounds poor. Just completely mismatched with our family. Mom, how could you say such a thing? That's right. Emily, how far will you go in belittling people? Belittle? I'm just telling the truth.
Emily and Kent argued as they used to. Kent apologized to me while scolding Emily. But that wouldn't make Emily back down. The meal ended in a heavy atmosphere. Serena, if you're fed up, you can leave me. Marrying me means dealing with Emily. I can't cut ties with her because of the company. Think about it while you still can. Hearing Emily mock my grandparents and seeing Tyler with such a tired, dark expression left me at a loss for words. But I managed to respond.
It's okay. I feel sorry for Grandpa and Grandma, but I'm fine with this.
Really? Tyler and I continued to encourage each other as we moved towards our marriage. I knew we had to meet with Grandpa and Grandma soon, but I wasn't looking forward to it. What should I do? As I thought about this on my way home, my face must have shown my distress. What's wrong? Why such a gloomy face? Did something happen with Tyler? Grandma saw right through me, and I had no choice but to open up about everything. I told them about Emily's personality and what she said about me and my grandparents, leaving them in silence. Well, I suppose we should meet them once. Let's have a dinner soon. Grandpa finally spoke up. He instructed me to arrange the time. But he insisted on a high-end restaurant. I was puzzled, but Grandpa just laughed.
Don't worry, I'll pay for the meal.
That's all Grandpa said in the end. On the day of the dinner, Grandpa arrived alone. Grandma, shocked by Emily's behavior, refused to meet her. Grandpa and I waited for Tyler and his parents, but Tyler messaged that he and Kent would be late. That meant Grandpa and I would have to deal with Emily first. Just the thought gave me a headache. As I held my head, Emily arrived, greeted us curtly, and sat down. She looked at me and Grandpa with a very displeased expression.
You didn't have to match our family with a high-end restaurant. A lower-class place would have sufficed. No, no. It would be rude to meet for the first time in such a place. Oh, I made you worry. But I wonder how long you can keep this up. It's harsh to expect such standards from country farmers. Well, we prioritize living a healthy and honest life over money.
Grandpa faced Emily calmly and firmly, without changing his attitude or behavior. Emily seemed displeased and spat out sarcastic comments and irritation towards Grandpa.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Tyler finally showed up. Kent followed him. Kent started to say something but stopped when he locked eyes with Grandpa.
Ah. Hey, you two. Why apologize to these people? If we make them wait, that's how it should be treated. Hey, Emily.
Kent's lips trembled, and his face turned pale with cold sweat.
What now? Another opinion from you? No. Emily, don't you realize? Eh?
As Tyler and I watched in surprise, Kent deeply bowed to Grandpa.
Chairman, I deeply apologize for my wife's numerous rudeness. Please forgive us. No need. Chairman is a title from the past. President, today's not about that. What? What is it? Quiet. It's not what. This man was once the chairman of a corporation that saved our company from a crisis. Huh? What? I didn't know that. Emily has always been a haughty lady.
Kent remembered calling Grandpa chairman, but Grandpa had once managed several companies. By the time I was a child, he had become a farmer, and according to Grandma, he had wanted to retire early from being a businessman. I had no idea how significant a businessman Grandpa had been. But according to Kent, Grandpa was a wealthy and well-known chairman of a famous company. Back then, the company I work for was on the brink of bankruptcy under Emily's father's presidency. With no hope for a loan from the bank, the company was saved by Grandpa's company, where he was the chairman and also a business partner. Emily turned pale and stiffened at Kent's words.
Let's have a pleasant dinner today, as a start to our future relationship.
With Grandpa's smile and words, the tense dinner began. We ate cheerfully, without showing any irritation. Tyler and Kent seemed a bit dazed, but occasionally smiled and chatted with Grandpa. Emily, however, kept her head down and barely moved her hands. The wedding preparations accelerated after the dinner. We set the wedding date and planned the ceremony and reception. Marrying a company heir was more challenging than I thought. Emily was completely left out of the loop. After making a big mistake at the dinner, she seemed to have lost all her usual boldness. She was restless and awkward around me. When asked for her opinion in wedding discussions, she just shook her head. It was unimaginable she would ever be as aggressive as before. Emily. I have something to discuss. As I spoke, Emily tried to leave.
Wait, please. I'd like your advice on the dress design, color, and venue decoration.
It would be wrong for me to give my opinion. Emily looked down, feeling worthless.
That's not true. You're familiar with dresses and know about glamorous things.
That's no longer useful.
No, it's important to me. I want to talk about such things with you, Emily. I can't with my mom anymore.
I had given up on doing things with Mom a long time ago. It was the path I had to live, and there was nothing I could do about it, even if I hated it. But deep down, I had always hoped for it. A wish I never shared with Grandpa and Grandma. I knew it would only trouble them. But I could confide in Emily. Even with everything that had happened, she would become Mom when I married Tyler. I needed to face her properly first. I'm sorry. I never tried to understand your situation, Serena. Emily apologized with tears in her eyes. I silently nodded, taking her hand. Emily chose a beautiful red dress for me.
Serena, a softer shade suits you better than a dark red.
Emily, who knew about flowers, helped with the reception venue decoration. Tyler and Kent looked on happily as I, the planner, and Emily gathered together to discuss. I'm ready to live with my new family. Including my own life, I want to build happiness.
She's not family, that's why he sent her home.
How could she say such a thing about my mother?
That one's just a housekeeper. This is a family trip, right? Those without blood ties are strangers. She's probably tending to the fields I told her to buy now.
My grandfather said too, laughing. My father and I were shocked.
Cut the crap.
What would happen after his shouting? My name is Hannah, and I'm 17 years old now. I live in the rural area, which is still common to have extended families living together. My friends' homes are the same, and of course, so is ours. My paternal grandparents, my parents, and I live together. Living together is one thing, but what comes with it is the constant harassment.
Hey, Olivia, isn't the seasoning in today's meal a bit strong? Well, it might be just right for our son and grandchild, but it's a bit much for us old folks. Sorry about that. I thought I was being careful. Careful, huh? And it's still this salty? Are you trying to shorten our lives by feeding us all this salt? Right, it's common for wives to cold-heartedly bully us frail elderly. You know, the wife in the house next door also.
Come on, it started again. My grandparents always find some way to make snide remarks to my mother, Olivia. It's always about something so unreasonable. Like today's dinner, it's not even that salty. Moreover, she's prepared separate portions for us and for the grandparents, seasoning them differently. I tried tasting it, and indeed, the elderly portion is bland. To me, the seasoning is far from enough. How can this be considered high in salt? Maybe it's better not to season it at all. Although my mother, who is used to it, just nodded along, I couldn't stand it and fought back. Grandpa, give it a rest. This is super lightly seasoned already. If you still think it's bland, why don't you taste your own sweat? A kid should be quiet. If Grandpa says it's too strong, then it's too strong. That's right. Hannah, you're just a kid, you wouldn't understand. For us elderly, it's quite strong. Your mother could make it lighter. That's why she's a bad wife. Hannah, make sure you don't turn out like her. Well, I love my mother's cooking. Unlike some tasteless old geezers. I'm in my rebellious phase, so there's no way I'm just going to take it and say okay. Catching a glimpse of my mother, she just hung her head, looking troubled, without retorting. She must have felt my gaze because she looked at me and gave me a weary smile. That tired smile pained my heart. It's not just about the cooking. Day in and day out, my grandparents always have something terrible to say to her. Like how she does the laundry wrong, or how her cleaning is not up to snuff. They even insist that leftovers are good enough for my mother's lunch, and that she should shower last. The list goes on. What era do they think this is? It's like something out of old drama series, these torments. The coldness my grandparents show my mother has another reason. It's because my parents keep their distance from my grandparents' peculiar faith. Instead of Christ, my grandparents worship Satan daily. They seem to blame my mother for my father, their son, being utterly indifferent to their faith. Their frequent saying is, "That one, Satan will drop into hell." My busy father is often away, and I come home late from the sports lessons. During that time, my housewife mother is left alone with my grandparents. Dad, Grandpa and Grandma were saying awful things to Mom again. They even suggested she's plotting something, saying the seasoning was strong when it was clearly bland. I reported to my father, who came home late at night. Honestly, I hate to bother my already tired father with such stories. But as his daughter, I just can't stay silent, can I? Man, happened again? Those two really are something. They don't realize that thanks to Olivia managing the house, they can enjoy their carefree retirement. It's all thanks to you too. I'm always grateful. Dear, it makes me happy to hear you say that. Hannah, you're such a good girl. No, I'm currently in my rebellious phase. It's just that my rebellion is aimed at my grandparents, so I'm less harsh on my parents. That's how much I dislike, or rather, detest my grandparents. Don't worry about it, Hannah. I'll talk to them.
Just keep being on your mom's side, okay?
My father said, patting my head, half irritated at being treated like a child, but also half pleased. Teenage emotions are complicated. One Sunday, I woke up late and lazily got out of bed, only to find my father arguing with grandmother.
Enough already, Mom!
My father's shouting voice snapped me to full alertness. Peeking into the living room, I saw my grandmother sitting on the sofa, looking grumpy. My father stood in front of her, and his face beat red with anger.
Making her work in the fields on such a cold day, what are you thinking?
He shouted. He is a regular office worker, but my grandparents are farmers, true to their rural roots. Though the size of their fields has greatly reduced due to old age. Field work? Is Grandpa doing it? Looking outside, I saw nothing but a white snowy landscape. The fields must be covered in snow. Is there something they're concerned about? When I was just thinking how dangerous it is for the elderly to work in the fields in such cold weather.
Oh, I'm starving. What's all this ruckus about? Where's Olivia? Isn't lunch ready yet?
My grandfather came in, scratching his belly. Okay, he is here. Wait, that means...
Wait, don't tell me Mom's.
My mother does indeed help out with my grandparents' farm work occasionally. But it's only during the harvest or busy times, generally, she doesn't. That's what I thought, but...
That's exactly it. I asked Mom where Oliver went, and she wouldn't say, so when I pressed her, what's the need to do anything in such snow?
Then she really went out. Oh my goodness.
Well, managing the fields during winter is crucial. I know that. I'm asking if it's necessary in the snow.
Snow repeatedly freezes and melts, messing up the soil. If you don't remove the snow, it'll be trouble in spring.
Lies. I remember hearing that when snow covers the ground, it's best to leave it be. You deal with snow before it falls or after the ground thaws.
Huh, is that so? Well, it's not the time to be impressed.
Anyway, Dad, we need to get Mom quickly.
Right, that was the point.
Mom, let's talk later, okay?
It's unbelievable that my mother has been working alone in such snow. Besides, it's starting to snow again. My father and I hurriedly put on our coats, boots, and dashed out of the house. She was there in the field. Exhaling white breath, her face red, she was shoveling snow. My father rushed over to her, and she gave a feeble smile. That smile again pained my heart. Why didn't I notice? While I was leisurely sleeping till noon, how many hours had she been shoveling snow? Being busy with work he brought home, my father hadn't noticed either and kept apologizing to the exhausted her. Sorry, Mom. Really sorry. That day, my grandmother got scolded by my angry father.
You will be the one to fall into hell.
After that, my grandparents were unusually quiet for a while. Seasons turned, and summer was approaching. The new term would start, and I would finally be in 12th grade.
How about going on a trip?
My father suggested. We have not traveled for a long time. After all, it's unlikely to go on family trips after high school graduation. Understanding the lonely feelings of a father, I pretended it was a hassle, but inside, I was excited. After all, parents pay for everything on family trips. There will be plenty of activities to do.
Oh, that sounds nice. How about a beach?
My rising spirits dropped at my grandmother's words.
Wait, are you coming too?
I regretted saying it immediately. Stepped on a landmine.
What a terrible grandchild. Planning to leave us out. A kid like that, Satan will.
She started, and eventually,
Olivia. It's because of your poor upbringing that Hannah has grown into such an unthoughtful child. What a useless, no good mother.
She began taking it out on my mother.
Hey! I might have said something wrong, but it's not fair to blame Mom for that. Oh, how sad for a grandma to have such a cold grandchild. It's all because Oliver didn't discipline properly. Woe is me.
Seriously? Woe is me, she actually said that. Astonished, I decided to give some payback by saying out loud,
Stop joking!
However, she continued to fake cry, while my grandfather nodded in agreement. Seeing the chaotic situation, my father sighed and tried to settle things.
all right. How about we go together?
Instantly, my grandmother's face lit up with a smile. Despite the troublesome situation, I was also looking forward to the trip. The day arrived. Living in the countryside, the airport was far. After hours' drive, we still had plenty of time before the scheduled flight. It's been a while since I visited the airport, so I wandered off from my family. When I thought it was about time and returned, I saw my grandparents sitting on the waiting chairs. Looking around for my parents, my father came back, munching on something. Looks tasty, Dad.
Yeah, this is really good.
You were eating something in the car, right? But I was also hungry, so I asked for one.
Olivia, you want it? Oh, where's she?
With a snack in hand, my father looked around.
Hannah, do you know where Mom is?
Weren't you with her, Dad?
No, she said she'd stay and watch the luggage. We said we'd go for a walk.
Hey Grandpa, do you know where Mom is? His response was unclear. Grandma, was Mom here when you came back?
Yes, she was.
So she was here. Maybe she's in the restroom? But no matter how long we waited, she didn't return. I checked the restroom, but she wasn't there. Looking around, there was no sign of her. Finding it strange, my father said with looking troubled,
It's almost time for departure. Where could Olivia be?
Is it time for boarding already? Then let's head over. Although my grandmother must have heard the conversation, she stood up without concern.
Mom, we need to look for Olivia.
She's not here, you know.
What?
Confused, my father tilted his head. I also looked at her. With a malicious smile, she said,
That one's not family. That's why I sent her home. What the hell?
My father was shocked, and then my grandfather said with a laugh,
She's just a housekeeper. This is a family trip, right? A wife without blood ties is a stranger. She's probably doing the fieldwork I ordered by now. What freaking are you saying?
We were just stunned, whereas they were laughing, unconcerned. Not family. What's that about? Mom's not family, then what is she?
What's that? Cut the crap. Olivia is my precious wife. Wife or not, a stranger is a stranger. She's the bad stranger who ensnared our dear son. Right, I never liked her from the start. That's why I disciplined her. A stranger, not working, just squatting in our house, she should at least do some farm work. Let's say, what was it? Right, a neat. Just like a neat.
They were chuckling with a vulgar laugh. I was so furious, and my vision turned red. I was about to say something when my father, quicker than me, stood in front of my grandparents and shouted,
Don't mess with me. Yikes!
My father's voice echoed throughout the space. In the busy and crowded place, his voice resonated surprisingly far. Without caring about other passengers who stopped in their tracks, wondering what was going on, he continued to yell.
Always just harassing Olivia with your petty torments. You think I don't know anything? I know it all.
Yes, I always tattle.
And just when I thought you reflected on that snow incident, you pull this childish stunt. What's so fun about this? Ryan, we were just trying to educate that woman for your sake. What education could you vile people possibly give? It should be you who needs to be educated.
Ryan.
How dare you speak to your parents like that? Dad, you said Olivia was a stranger, right? She is my precious wife. My beloved wife. The most important family to me. You say that my family member, Olivia, is not your family, that she's a stranger. Then I'm a stranger too. You two and I are strangers. Ryan, what are you saying? What am I saying? That's my line. Do you even realize what you're saying, what you're doing?
My grandparents' faces got paled at his fury. I had never seen him so angry. It must have been the same for my grandparents. My grandmother looked like she might burst into tears any moment. However, my grandfather gave a wry smile at my father's state. It infuriated me even more to see him laugh it off. Listen, Ryan. Calm down. He seemed to want to somehow control his son, to maintain his dignity as a father.
Anyway, we're running out of time. Let's just have Olivia give up this time. And, well, let's just go, just us. The gate close is almost here. And we don't want to waste the cancellation fee for the hotel we booked.
What? Wait, what is he even saying? Expecting Mom to give up this time? Whose fault does he think this is?
Whose fault do you think this is?
My inner thoughts and my father's shout coincidentally overlapped. My grandfather let out a startled yelp.
That's enough. If you want to go, then just go on your own. No, you guys were supposed to come too.
Oh, I'm not family either, so it's fine.
Hannah.
As I casually responded, her face showed shock. What? Did she think I would go along with them? As a daughter of a non-family mother, I am not family either.
No way! You're family. You have a blood connection.
My bond with my mother is stronger. At a loss for words, my grandparents could only snort in response. I turned to my father. Let's go home, Dad. Mom is waiting.
Yeah, that's right. I'll call her soon after.
Okay, let's do that. Carrying our bags, we headed for the exit, followed by my flustered grandmother.
Hey, wait! What about us? What's going to happen to our trip? That's not our problem. Go on your own.
And preferably, don't come back.
What about the money? If you want to go, pay for it yourselves. No way!
Her voice echoed around us. My grandfather stood dumbfounded. Leaving them behind, we headed home, where my mother was waiting. She was seemingly happy, perhaps because we had called from the car. But I didn't miss it. Her eyes were red. There were traces of tears. Those two, I'll never forgive them. Hey, Dad, I've been thinking.
That's a coincidence, so have I.
While hugging my mother, I spoke to my father, and sensed him nodding in agreement. That night, my grandparents, having few money for the trip, returned home huffing and puffing. They could have taken a taxi by promising to pay upon arrival or borrowed money from a police station near the station to take the bus. But they didn't even know or understand such things. That's just like them. I guess it served as a good punishment. At first, they were extremely apologetic, but in front of my mother, they began to grow bolder again.
We did nothing wrong. That woman is to blame.
But my father had enough.
That's it. We're finding a new house and moving out. We're cutting ties. I don't care about your old age.
He made an unexpected declaration. My grandparents were pale, but his determination didn't waver. He temporarily moved my mother and me to a hotel and hurried to find a new house. He found a good property convenient for his commute and my school. Dad, you are so reliable. Then, on moving day,
please, we apologize for everything up to now. Don't abandon us.
My grandmother was begging, crying.
What are we supposed to do if you two leave us?
My grandfather was nearly in tears. I don't care. With a dismissive tone, my father left the grandparents in despair.
Olivia, please. We're sorry for everything. We won't do it again. We'll recognize you as family. So let's go back to how things were, okay?
Astonishingly, to whom Grandma pleaded was my mother. After all the terrible things they've done, how conveniently self-serving. Feeling disgusted, I saw my mother take my grandmother's hand. With a bright smile on my mother's face, just as her face lit up in response, my mother said, "Judgment from the grand white throne."
Huh?
Satan sees all the anger in this world.
What are you talking about?
The day to kneel before Satan is near, you'd better prepare your excuses. I hope you make it to heaven.
Wait, hey, wait.
Goodbye. Leaving the speechless grandparents behind, we got into the car. As we drove away from their house, I glanced back once to see them standing there, dumbfounded. They were getting further and further away, and I realized that might be the last time I see them. Inside the car, heading to a new beginning, as I chuckled at the passing scenery, my mother looked at me curiously.
What's up?
Well, just feeling a bit envious.
Of what?
Of Dad. He said, my precious wife, my beloved spouse, the most important family member to me.
Really? Hannah, what are you spilling?
Oh my, still so lovey-dovey after all these years. Really makes one envious.
Come on, no kidding.
My mother, blushing, lightly tapped my head. It didn't hurt, but I pretended it did and rubbed my head, then added, I wish I could have a boyfriend like Dad soon. Right after that.
A boyfriend?
His pained cry echoed through the car, holding the steering wheel.
First take this $20 and go to the hospital, because I promised Mom I'd do something for her first.
My husband said, pulling out the bill and handing it to me. I was completely taken aback by this unexpected turn of events and could only stand there dumbfounded, watching him drive away. Incredibly, he had chosen to leave his wife, who was in pain from her water breaking, to prioritize taking his mother to her hobby class. Despite the harassment I had suffered from my mother-in-law, Mary, and the tough times she put me through, I had always endured it, thinking of our unborn child. But now it was clear to me. A person who disregards their child like this doesn't deserve to be a parent. I steeled myself to face childbirth alone, enduring the increasing pains. I am Jane. Tom, whom I married right after graduating from college, is 3 years older than me, and we lead a reasonably happy married life. He was a senior at the club I belonged to in college. He seemed to have fallen in love with me at first sight when I joined as a new member, and looking back, I was embarrassingly overwhelmed by his passionate approach. As a young adult, just being a senior made him seem irresistibly cool, and I responded to his approach. We dated smoothly from 3 months after I enrolled until graduation. Even after marriage, Tom was head over heels in love with me, so I never worried about him cheating. He proudly tells his colleagues how happy he is to come home on time every day and eat the meals I cook while they're still warm, so I doubt any woman would purposely approach him. However, Tom has always been particularly kind to women, and naturally, some were drawn to him. But he has always been devoted to me, and I've never been attracted to any other man. However, there's a reason why I initially described our marriage as reasonably happy. That reason is my mother-in-law, Mary. I thought mother-in-law problems were a thing of the past, but Mary frowned the moment she saw me.
What's with your hair? Looks like you dumped paint on it.
Let me guess, you dyed it in a hurry last night, trying to look innocent?
It's embarrassing. Can you leave my son and go home for today?
Seriously, you knew we were meeting. You should have taken care of your hair earlier. When I first visited Tom's family before we got married, Mary said this, and I, still young, turned pale with fear. Just as Mary said, I realized the day before that my hair color was too bright, so I dyed it with Tom's help. Feeling embarrassed and frustrated at being seen through, I was down for a while after that. It was my fault for the breach of etiquette, but I wouldn't have been so upset if Mary had been a bit more restrained in her comments. Because of my hair color, I felt like I was being pushed away from Tom and was sent back home alone from my first visit to his family, so Tom called me later.
Mom was just nervous and came off too harsh. She actually likes you, Jane, so don't worry. She's in favor of our marriage and really wants you to visit home again.
This time, I was irritated with Tom's carefree talk. He didn't stop Mary from making snide remarks right in front of me, and he even seemed to be defending her. There's no doubt Mary doesn't genuinely want me at her house. Would I be pressured to live with them after marriage and face daily harassment? Surprisingly, when we got married, Mary didn't suggest anything like that. I was relieved, but soon after, Mary began frequently inviting Tom to her home. Now that you've finally graduated from a far-off university and got a job here, you get married right away. I've been so lonely. Why don't you let Jane rest and stay here for about a week? Messages like this would arrive for Tom, and I shivered. Showing me the message, Tom asked,
"What do you think?"
Instead of answering, I called Mary right there.
"I'm sorry, but we haven't finished unpacking and the paperwork isn't done yet either. It'll be a while before Tom can relax. I apologize."
When I said this, Mary replied with nagging words.
"Do the unpacking yourself?" Don't always rely on my son.
But I just nodded along and ended the call. Mary's offer to let me rest was just a facade. She wanted her dear son by her side. I was annoyed with Mary for lacking consideration, especially as newlyweds, and also upset with Tom for not refusing. According to Tom, Mary has always been like this. Her overprotectiveness worsened after she divorced Tom's father. When Tom decided to go to college, she cried and tried to stop him. Somehow he convinced her and went to college, but they communicated via messages and calls almost every night. Tom trusts his mother, who raised him as a single mom, so they've always had a good relationship. It's fine to be a caring child and mother, but there should be an appropriate distance between adults. And I understand it's not good to interfere with another family's dynamics. He was serious about his job and chores and had a nice personality, so for a while, I tried to come to terms with it. But it wasn't long before I began to question the uncomfortably close relationship between the two of them. One holiday, my usually late-sleeping husband woke up earlier than me and started preparing to go out, so I asked,
"Did we have plans to go somewhere today?" "Mom and I are going shopping, Jane." "You can keep sleeping,"
he replied with an unbelievable answer. Apparently, Mary wanted to buy clothes and asked Tom to come along so she could ask for his opinion. I got angry again at my husband for agreeing without hesitation, but tried to stay calm.
"You finally have a day off. Let's do something together."
I tried to keep him walking out the door. But he shook his head and replied,
"I'd like that, but I already promised Mom, and she seems to be waiting outside already."
Shocked by his words, I headed to the entrance in my pajamas. Looking out the window to the garden, I saw Mary's bright red car parked there. Noticing my gaze, Mary turned around and smirked as she got out of the car.
"Tom, you're late. Jane's a stay-at-home wife and still asleep at this hour?"
Pathetic.
"Should I buy you an alarm clock on our way home today?"
Mary, with her bright red lipstick matching her car, laughed heartily and affectionately took my husband's hand, leading him to the passenger seat. I was dumbfounded watching their cozy interaction and could only watch as Mary's car sped away cheerfully. After this incident, my husband's behavior started to change gradually. He almost stopped doing the household chores he used to do naturally and began going to his family's house almost every weekend. His attitude towards me also changed, becoming more domineering.
"Jane, you're too lazy. When I have a day off, you just sleep with me, right? Can you call that being a housewife? You even stopped putting on makeup at home. That's not good after getting married. Mom is worried about you, too. Why don't you visit her alone once in a while?"
I don't know what Mary has been saying about me, but my husband agreeing with her is absurd. He never mentioned anything about naps or makeup during our courtship. But as my husband says, maybe Mary really is concerned about my behavior. I tried to convince myself of this several times, but knowing how Mary treats my husband like a lover, I can't help but see it as harassment towards me. However, I thought Mary's curse would change once we had a child. I found out I was pregnant shortly after I started having doubts about my husband's behavior. His eyes lit up with joy. And he held my hand, promising to work through it together. But Mary's harassment got worse after this, indirectly forcing my husband to leave me alone for trivial reasons like shopping, hospital visits, or cleaning her house. I tried explaining to my husband that Mary's actions were malicious towards me, but it backfired. He suddenly snapped with anger.
"Mom always talks about you when we meet. She says you should go back to your parents' house or take time for yourself. Getting angry over this will affect the baby in your stomach. You should appreciate Mom's concern."
He started leaving me alone more often. As morning sickness worsened, I told him I was anxious being alone and wanted him to be with me as much as possible. But to my cry for help, his reply was unbelievable.
"Even if I'm around, there's nothing I can do for you. Mom said she wanted to be alone all the time during her pregnancy and didn't even want to see Dad."
He wouldn't listen to me. And feeling physically and emotionally unstable, I resolved to fight alone. Then, one day while shopping for baby items with my husband, we bumped into one of his colleagues.
Tom, I hear you're actively attending parenting classes. Your home library is full of parenting books, right? Today, too, accompanying your wife for shopping, you're going to be a great dad. Can't wait for your child to be born.
I was so shocked that I blurted out.
What?
Tom quickly interjected, laughing.
Stop it, man.
Turns out, he's been pretending to be a devoted new father at work, making up stories. I kept quiet to avoid a scene with the colleague, but inside, I was seething with anger. He continued to prioritize Mary, and occasionally, when I ran into his colleagues, they'd envy me.
Jane, you found the ideal husband.
These incidents gradually made me start distrusting my husband's words and actions. I can't say for sure if the stress caused it, but one weekend, while I was making lunch, I noticed my pants were wet. A certain thought crossed my mind, so I rushed to the bathroom. And sure enough, I realized my water had broken. I headed to the bedroom where my husband was still sleeping and yelled to get the car ready right away. My husband, groggy at first, quickly helped me walk by supporting me under my arm when he learned my water had broken. The nurses had repeatedly told me to come to the hospital immediately if my water broke. There might be urgent danger, so my husband was also somewhat panicked. In the midst of labor pains, we finally managed to get into the car and started driving when my husband's mobile phone rang. Unable to answer while driving, I peeked at the screen amidst my pain. When I saw Mary's name, I intuitively had a bad feeling. I glared at the screen for a while, but the ringing continued the entire time. Thinking it would be quicker to explain the situation, I reluctantly answered the phone.
Tom, where are you?
It's Wednesday, it's the day for my craft class? Did you forget? Mary's voice, never used when talking to me, sent chills down my spine, but I explained to her.
Mary, actually, my water just broke, and I'm on my way to the hospital with Tom.
As soon as I spoke, Mary's tone changed dramatically, and she started yelling at me.
That's your own problem. I don't care. How dare you use your resting husband as a taxi? Put Tom on the phone. Today is the fixed day for my craft class. I had the appointment first.
Stunned, I couldn't believe Mary was saying such things, not even concerned about her grandchild. I remained silent, but Mary's shrill voice continued. Sorry, Jane, my husband muttered. For a moment, I thought he was apologizing for Mary's outburst. But then, I realized he had walked around to the back seat where I was lying and was opening the door. Confused and in pain, I was speechless. Then my husband said something unbelievable.
I had promised to drive Mom, so can you take a taxi or ambulance from here? I'll definitely catch up later. That's the plan. Wait. Are you prioritizing your craft class over your own child? I can't convince Mary, so you talk to her. The pain is getting worse, hurry up.
I was desperate, so I raised my voice. But my husband frowned and said, It's a regular commitment. It can't be helped. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you about it. Here's some money, please manage with this. He took $20 from his wallet and stuffed it into my bag. Then, he went back to the driver's seat and left me there without hesitation. I can't believe this. I was still close to our house. Not wanting to be seen by neighbors, I quickly looked up for a taxi. Amniotic fluid continued to trickle down my legs, and I panicked about the baby's safety. Tears welled up in frustration as I stared at my mobile phone, trembling with pain, wondering why we had to endure this.
Jane!
Startled by my name being called, I turned around and saw a familiar face.
What's wrong? You look terrible. Don't worry about talking, just get in.
This person gently supported me and helped me into the back seat of their car. Her husband adjusted the seat for me as he sat in the driver's seat. After that, my memory is fuzzy. I was rushed into a wheelchair at my regular hospital and taken to a prepared hospital room. The pain was so intense that I groaned, but I was told there was still time before the birth, so I rested there. I endured the overwhelming pain that occasionally threatened to make me lose consciousness when suddenly, my mobile phone rang. Thinking it might be a callback from my mother, who I had called on the way, I was shocked to find it was my husband. Looking at the clock, it was already evening. 3 hours had passed, and now he arrives? I decided not to answer. But after continuous ringing, I picked up the phone, irritated.
Jane! Help me! I want you to explain the situation.
Not even a word of concern for me, and now he wants help? Even if he was about to be eaten by a crocodile, I had no obligation to help the man who abandoned his child and me.
Who do you think you are? How dare you say such things?
I yelled at my husband through the mobile phone and then hung up. After a while, I faced childbirth alone. I would have liked to have my reliable husband holding my hand at such a time, but it's better off without a foolish husband who can't even prioritize things right. Instead, I received support from the kind nurses, and by nightfall, my long-awaited baby was born. Both mother and child were safe, and I fell asleep quickly due to the exhaustion. The next morning, the first thing the nurse told me when she came into my room was that my husband had come. Apparently, he came right after the birth, but since I was sleeping so deeply, the nurse kindly sent him back home. Honestly, I thought I would never want to see my husband again. But when he entered the room looking so haggard, I couldn't help but ask what happened. The person who had helped me in my suffering and taken me to the hospital yesterday was N, a neighbor I had always been close with. She had taken care of me like her own daughter since her son was about the same age as me, and she had been a great support to me when I was newly married and anxious. When I told her in the car that my husband was taking Mary to her hobby class, she was furious as if it was her own matter. Little did I know that this would ultimately corner my husband. After dropping me off, and spread the story around the neighborhood. Being the head of the neighborhood association, her words spread quickly, and her friends seemed to have confronted my husband about it. The reason my husband was begging for help was this: it seemed to have caused quite a commotion, attracting onlookers around our house. No matter how panicked he was, it was obviously too foolish of him to ask for my help in that situation. I had not heard from Mary since then, and my mind was already made up.
Sorry, but can you leave? I'm still not feeling well, and my parents are coming soon.
Both of them know about this, right? I want to apologize. Can I stay? My husband spoke in a small, pitiful voice.
What? You wanting to apologize is not my business. I'm busy, so please leave.
Don't say that. By the way, where's the baby? I'll leave after seeing the baby.
Just leave. There are other pregnant women here, so please go.
Even though I replied coldly, he still stood there, so I turned my back and covered myself with a blanket. I'm sorry. Please call Mom for me. I want to send her a photo of the baby. Can I call the nurse? Unbelievably, my husband reached out and shook me. When I couldn't stand it anymore and was about to push him away.
What are you doing? Don't touch my daughter.
My parents walked into the room just in time. My mother rushed over and pushed my husband away.
How dare you shake the body of someone who just gave birth? And after doing such a thing, how could you show your face here? I'm disappointed in you. Get out of here, now.
Even I had never seen my mother so fierce, and overwhelmed by her presence, my husband finally left the room. My father followed him, and I knew he would be thoroughly scolded. During my hospital stay, I refused to see my husband and took the baby to my parents' house after being discharged. I didn't want to risk meeting him, so I told him over the phone that I wanted a divorce. I only communicated about writing the divorce papers, mailing them, and claiming compensation, ignoring anything else he said. By the way, the compensation was for the scratches and bruises I got when he forcibly removed me from the car. He tried to make excuses, but I silenced him by saying I had testimony from and her husband and photos of the injuries from that day. The lawyer said the cost for his malicious actions against a pregnant woman would be significant. While I was busy with the baby, Mary showed up at my parents' house once. The rumors spread by and didn't seem to fade, and the neighbors' gazes were cold. She blamed it all on me for not respecting our family, but my father handled everything. Both of them were scolded by my father, and I thought it would have been better if we had done this from the beginning. But to that my father said,
"The head of the household doesn't easily come to the forefront."
He was oddly showing off. When I got used to childcare, I invited Anne to my parents' house and introduced her to them. Being of the same age, she quickly became friends with my mother, and we agreed to keep in touch. And then told me about my ex-husband, which she heard from a friend who worked part-time at his company. Her friend, who loves gossip like Anne, seemed to have spread the story about my ex-husband to others at some point. The story spread quickly again, and his reputation plummeted. He had pretended to be a devoted new dad, and the disparity was so great that his bosses and colleagues looked at him with disdain, leading him to resign in disgrace. Becoming unemployed with no qualifications just before turning 30, my ex-husband lived in fear of the neighbors' gazes, relying on Mary's pension and savings. Years later, I almost forgot he existed, but then he called again.
"Where are you?" "I'm in front of your parents' house right now, but the nameplate is different, isn't it?"
He said this out of the blue, so I responded in kind. "Can't you tell by the nameplate? I've moved." "What do you want?"
"Moved? You're living it up with the compensation I gave you. Come back right now, let's start over. Mom wants to see you too. What you're saying makes no sense. Why would I go back to you? Still saying that? I don't want to hear anything, so don't call me."
I hung up without waiting for a response, and my phone kept ringing for a while. After finally completing the call rejection settings, messages begging for reconciliation arrived. I read them all just in case, but
Don't you feel sorry that the child doesn't have a father? It's unfilial to not show yourself to mom after taking care of you.
He wrote such nonsensical things, so I deleted them all and changed my email address. This whole ordeal was the worst, but thankfully, it allowed me to push for a favorable divorce and penalize the other party. Having such a terrible family member is not good for the child. Thinking so, I enjoyed relaxed parenting while being supported by my parents, who had become grandparents.
Mom and Dad are taking me overseas. This is just going to be luggage, so I'll leave this behind with you. It might be hard for you, but it's a good way to kill time, right?
Kristen said with a smirk, implying her superiority to Sophia. Kelly, who married into an elite family, always boasted about her daughter Kristen. On the other hand, my family, with Sophia the same age as Kristen, come from a normal family. Influenced by Kelly, Kristen grew up flaunting her financial comfort and academic excellence, always emphasizing how different she was from Sophia. For Sophia too, this summer vacation is crucial, as she's preparing for college entrance exams. Kristen, caught up in her own excitement, left a pile of school assignments at our house and went off to her overseas trip. However, Sophia, the recipient of Kristen's spite, decides to take action. My name is Mary. I'm a working mother in a regular household, with my daughter Sophia facing exams this year. Every morning, I make breakfast, wake up Sophia and my husband Harold, hand them their lunches, and we all head out. Life was supposed to continue like this, day after day. But it quickly changed. Now, my life is filled with struggles. It's because of my sister-in-law Kelly, married to Adam, who works in a globally expanding company. Kelly, who married a rich, and her daughter Kristen, have become a source of stress. Sophia and Kristen, being the same age, were inseparable like twins during their childhood. Living not far from each other's homes, family gatherings, especially during long vacations, meant they were always together. But as Kristen started attending various classes and tutoring, their playtime significantly reduced. Gradually, we lost touch with Kelly's family, and by the time we met again, Kristen, maintaining top grades at a prestigious private school, had become Kelly's pride. In Adam's absence due to frequent business trips, Kelly enjoyed her life as an elegant housewife. With Kristen nearly guaranteed a scholarship through school recommendations due to her grades, you could say their whole family was sailing smoothly. However, for Kelly and Kristen, with too much time on their hands, our family, working parents, and Sophia studying hard for general exams, became an easy target for mockery. When did Kelly's assertive personality twist into something unpleasant? Her straightforward and cool attitude was lost, replaced with sending us unpleasant, boastful messages. It wouldn't matter if I was the only target. But on weekends, they started visiting, ostensibly to play with us, bringing expensive confectionery as a pretext, clearly to disturb us, especially Sophia.
We bought this cake, so let's have tea. Sophia should come and join us. Kristen, go call her,
Kelly said, summoning Sophia without my permission. Of course, Sophia was studying. Soon, Sophia came down to the living room, looking displeased. Kristen, with a somewhat mean smile, nudges her.
People taking general exams have to cram a lot, right? Must be tough. But since your cousin's here to play, you should entertain her.
Well, you don't need to study, but I. Unlike the provocative Kristen, Sophia is shy and can't stand up for herself. All I can do is try to end the tea party quickly. I swiftly prepared the tea and hastened them to finish the cake. Meanwhile, Kelly keeps bragging about how brilliant Kristen is and how hard she works at her extracurriculars.
Isn't it odd? You're a mother and you hardly ever boast about Sophia.
Kelly suddenly said so out of nowhere. But the reason I don't retort with boastful stories is that Sophia has asked me not to. Sophia possesses many virtues that neither I nor Harold have. I always want to counter. But Sophia seems to think there's no need to let Kelly and the rest know. I tolerate and respect Sophia's wishes, responding nonchalantly.
Mom always bragged more about you than me, right? It's the same thing.
Kelly, looking satisfied, laughed it off.
Yeah, that's right.
This way everything ends as if nothing happened. Yes, our parents also favored Kelly over me, always showing more enthusiasm and expectation for her. They sided with Kelly, who married the elite Adam, all the time. I could tolerate that, but what really got to me was how they constantly compared the grandchildren, always praising Kristen. I was utterly fed up with our parents' attitude. Despite feeling a strong irritation inside, I had to endure it for Sophia's sake, day after day. Then, the children's summer vacation arrived. But with it came turmoil. Kelly's family was preparing for a month-long trip abroad. Since they seemed to be unconcerned with academic studies, we had been hearing about their proud travel plans every week. We thought about taking a trip ourselves, but Sophia was determined.
Without Kristen around, I'll be able to study in peace.
So, we dropped our plans. However, just before their departure, Kelly's family showed up at our house with a pile of assignments.
Kelly, what is all this?
Summer homework, of course. I faced them, feeling a mix of surprise and bewilderment. The massive amount of assignments, covering our table, was obviously from Kristen's school.
We're leaving soon, right? These would just be extra luggage, and Kristen doesn't have time for such tedious stuff, so we thought we'd leave it to Sophia. Yeah, it might be a bit tough for you, but give it your best shot.
Sophia and I were both stunned. Kelly and her family wore smug smiles. They didn't even try to hide their condescending looks. But did they realize how absurd their words were?
I have my own assignments, and summer courses too.
For a student facing exams, there's no time to waste on trivial things. Sophia's dream school is highly competitive. She couldn't possibly spare time for Kristen's work on top of her own studies and summer courses. Sophia tried to speak up, but Kelly cut her off.
It's Sophia's last summer in high school too, so I originally said no to this plan, you know. But you guys aren't going anywhere, right? Unlike our Adam, traveling must be hard for you guys.
Kristen joined in with a spiteful look at Sophia.
My school's on high level, so I'm not sure if Sophia can handle it, but it's a good study opportunity, right?
After their carefree remarks, they left the blank assignments and departed for their trip. Adam probably didn't know about this. He's been away for work, leaving before the summer break. Without the fair and serious Adam around, they brazenly dumped this on us. I tried talking to our parents about Kelly's outrageous behavior, but they still sided with her, making me furious. You need to study anyways, so just do it. Kristen is giving you this chance, which makes her the better child. Sophia's not trying hard enough. Instead of complaining, why doesn't she just study quietly? My mom said so selfishly. With Dad always agreeing with her, I realized I couldn't expect anything from our parents. Dejected, I gave up on consulting them. Sophia not getting a recommendation was largely due to her reserved nature. Those selected for recommendation slots were active in student council, clubs, and had outstanding grades. Sophia, being shy, always found it challenging. But she was distressed enough to say she could study more in the absence of Kelly's family. I was filled with seething anger. Sophia too was furious. But, unlike my vehement refusal, she reacted differently. To my surprise, she started tackling Kristen's assignments alongside her own studies.
I won't lose. If I can't beat Kristen, I can't beat the exams. Mom, I'll show them I can do it.
That way of thinking never even crossed my mind, but Sophia was determined.
I'll create work that will shut them up.
She was breathing heavily. If Kelly and Kristen returned to find the assignments untouched, they would be troubled. But my concern was how much more they would interfere with Sophia after that. Kelly and her family were looking down on us, thinking, she can't possibly do it. Well, then, we just had to surpass their expectations. Next time we're asked for something, we can just say, we're going to refuse, since we already completed that massive load of summer homework. Impressed by Sophia's positive attitude, I changed my mindset. No longer just enduring, but ready to fight back boldly, that was the only way to win against Kelly and her family. I confessed everything to Harold and persuaded him to join us as a family in tackling the tasks. Sophia and I were more than ready, but Harold, preferring to think it over, called it a day. However, within 2 days, Harold came up with a summer vacation schedule to get through the assignments. He planned not only the homework but also divided household chores among the 3 of us, set days to check progress, and even ensured Sophia had time for her own studies. He thought of everything, including breaks from the study-heavy routine. We were amazed at the precision of his hastily made plan.
Dad, you're actually amazing?
Sophia asked innocently. Harold with a bashful smile replied. It's what I do every day at work. Though he seemed modest, he was the best leader for Sophia and I. As a result of our family's united effort, we finished the assignments perfectly and ahead of schedule. Sophia was able to focus on her studies, and her mock exam scores improved significantly. I was relieved to see her gaining confidence. Harold, in a great mood, picked up one particular assignment for a final check.
This French essay is outstanding. With this, you and I could go back to college.
The truth is, Harold and I couldn't pursue doctoral studies due to financial reasons. Working on this reminded us of the French literature seminar room where we first met. That was how hard we were tackling the assignments. Studying and researching really was fascinating. So fascinating that it made me worry that Kristen, who considers such things as troublesome, might miss out on this joy. Right before summer vacation ended, Kelly's family returned. They collected the assignments without much inspection, seemingly satisfied that they were just done. Their own stories seemed far more important to them. Then, a few days into the new term, an unusually cheerful Kelly and her family visited. Apparently, some of the assignments were exceptionally good, earning praise from teachers. Kelly and Kristen were proud, despite having no part in the work.
And the French essay. Next week, it will be presented as an outstanding piece in front of everyone. Which reminds me, didn't you and Harold major in French literature or something? Seems like it didn't lead to great job prospects. Anyways, since it's Kristen's assignment, she'll be the one receiving the accolades.
Kelly probably enjoyed thinking we were desperately working on just a child's homework. Kristen could hardly contain her mocking laughter, delighted with the bonus recognition. Later, Kelly sent us a photo of Kristen holding the award certificate, but I just replied, "Congratulations," and deleted the picture. However, trouble arose the following month. In the middle of the night, an enraged Kelly barged into our house. Kristen crying beside her.
Hey Mary! Write that French thing again. You did it once, so you can do it. What? At this ungodly hour? You're asking for French.
As I tried to calm down the frantic Kelly at the front door, Harold and Sophia woke up. The French essay from the summer vacation, which earned Kristen the recognition, was selected for a presentation at the cultural festival. She accepted, thinking it was just a reading, but then was told to submit a new essay for another competition. Kristen struggles with French, even simple compositions are hard for her.
So she thought, I'll just have Sophia write it again.
And imposed a deadline on Sophia without her consent. But Sophia ignored the new French essay request. The unity during summer vacation had grown into a big confidence boost for her, strengthening her trust in the family. Today, just before the festival, Sophia finally responded to Kristen, who was angrily pressing for the deadline.
I didn't write the summer vacation essay, so I don't know. Why don't you ask Mom and the others?
Kristen, always hiding behind Kelly, was essentially a timid and mean-spirited girl. She couldn't say anything directly to us. Sophia was unusually cold to her, and in a panic, she thought of consulting Kelly, but unfortunately, she was out at a mom friend's party and didn't get home until very late at night. When Kelly got home, Kristen was waiting and crying, confessing about the essay. Kelly, who had no intention of going to the cultural festival, calling it child's play, was therefore uninformed and shocked. Without caring that it was midnight, she rushed over to our house in a panic. So, it's about that French essay. Make a new one, please. Poor Kristen, she's been deceived by Sophia. It seemed that was the situation. Honestly, I was surprised at Kelly's audacity to leave such a big problem entirely up to us. Sophia, watching Kelly and the others screaming at the front door, remained cool and unimpressed. Anyway, we no longer had a reason to write a new essay. I recommended admitting honestly that she couldn't write.
I can't let her do something so pathetic,
Kelly retorted. But our family firmly continued to refuse.
We've done our duty with the summer assignments. We won't do anything more. Enough is enough, or we'll call the police, or Adam, before that.
With Harold's words, Kelly suddenly fell silent and took Kristen home with her. A few hours later, our home phone rang. It was our displeased mom back home. Apparently, Kelly had gone crying to her parents right after.
You should write Kristen's essay, Mom said.
But maybe because she was woken up at an unreasonable hour, Mom was complaining differently than usual, not taking Kelly's side.
Seriously, both Kelly and Kristen are the worst. Kelly is always angry, and Kristen is always just tagging along. Calling in the middle of the night without even considering the inconvenience of others.
The phone call continued with complaints about Kelly. Mom might be a victim in her own way, but she just seemed to be looking down on Kelly. I quickly refused to help with the essay. We no longer wanted to be involved with them. Later, they somehow managed to finish the French essay using a translation app. Naturally, the quality was miles apart from the summer assignment. The teachers were in an uproar over the poor quality. There were even suggestions that the award-winning assignment might have been plagiarized, and Kristen was questioned.
That essay you submitted for the festival, I've never seen such poor quality. We've discussed it with other teachers, and we think we need to verify if you really wrote your summer vacation essay yourself. I did it, teacher. I really did. I didn't plagiarize, I swear. If that's true, there's no way your essay would be this poorly written. The simple grammar and spelling mistakes are glaring. It's as if it was hastily written in a panic to meet the deadline. For a high school student, anyway, you'll have to explain properly.
After being repeatedly questioned by the teacher without her mother's protection, Kristen finally confessed to having someone else do all her assignments. As a result, her grades were reassessed. The presentation at the cultural festival was, of course, cancelled, and she was given a suspension, with more assignments than those from the summer vacation. Her internal grades were significantly reduced. The details of the assignment commission were also recorded in her report, and it seemed the incident was over. But that was not the end. Following the severe reprimand she received, classmates started confessing problems with her school life. Turns out, Kristen had been targeting poor or timid kids, throwing money at them to forcefully do her assignments. It was revealed that those who couldn't resist because of poverty or those humiliated and laughed at when called out by Kristen's group brought the issue to light. The school tried to settle the matter quietly. To clarify the situation, Kristen underwent several interviews and investigations. This was no mere issue for a report card. The incident led to the cancellation of Kristen's designated school recommendation. Since the second-ranking student took her place, Kristen was forced to take general entrance exams, but she had long lost any time to study at school. The season quickly turned to exam season, and, as a result of her lack of study, she failed everything. On the other hand, since Kelly and her family hardly visited our house after the cultural festival, Sophia, who had diligently studied, got into a university. Her efforts paid off, and she got into the national university she wanted. Our house was wrapped in a celebratory mood, and I made a lavish dinner to celebrate. Kelly, without changing her heart, forced Kristen into a gap year, fearing they would be seen as a family that couldn't send their daughter to college. Kristen, maybe due to her pride, started studying at home but made no progress. The atmosphere in Kelly's house grew worse by the day, with constant parent-child fights, but all they blamed was us. Adam finally became suspicious of Kristen's attitude, which seemed to target Sophia excessively. He was completely unaware of the incident Kristen had caused at school. But once it was revealed, Adam was deeply shocked. "I can't believe it. Kristen has grown into a person who looks down on others, flaunting her wealth and just taking what's good." Kelly had baseless absolute confidence in her parenting. Adam trusted her, but it was Kristen who had caused an incident involving the school and several classmates. Desperate, he tried to convince them to at least apologize to our family, but their pride got in the way, and they refused. They wouldn't bow their heads, and instead, kept trying to put the blame on us. Adam, hearing bad things about us every day, came to despise his wife and child from the bottom of his heart and eventually decided to divorce. Kelly and Kristen, kicked out of their luxurious house, decided to return to their parents' home. Kelly thought they would be welcomed since they brought cute Kristen, but things didn't go as she planned. Our parents, who always supported her, started treating Kristen almost like a jinx because of the multiple problems she caused. And their attitude changed drastically. They had always been harsh on Sophia but now turned to her with kind voices, desperately trying to please her. They even tried to send her expensive gifts. This confused both me and Sophia.
For your successful admission, how about we buy you a luxury brand bag? You've worked so hard, you deserve all the luxury. Yeah, unlike Kristen, it's okay if it's a bit expensive, tell your grandpa what you want.
Their parents praised Sophia and disparaged Kristen. Sophia had long lost her affection for her grandparents and wouldn't be appeased with a brand bag. Neither me nor Sophia wanted to get back at Kelly and her family for what they had done. We didn't want to look down on them, so we refused the gift even if it was for celebration. Why were our parents trying to please us? It seemed to be related to Kelly and her family coming back.
Kelly's back, right? We want you to help her. For the family. You know, we're getting old, and there are household chores.
My mother hesitated on purpose. They couldn't handle Kelly and her family, so they were calling us to take care of them. But we had long lost any desire to see Kelly and her family's faces. Not just me, but my whole family refused and didn't step into my parents' house. Moreover, we had no intention of visiting them anymore. To my parents who were desperately trying to please us at our front door, Sophia smiled back and said,
"We're moving. We're not coming back to this town, so take care of Kristen and her family." I have university, so please don't bother us anymore. Goodbye. What?
Our parents could only stand there with mouths agape. Yes, we had decided to move all together after that summer vacation, regardless of the exam results. And so, we cut ties with my parents and Kelly's family and headed to a new town. The ones left behind are reportedly fighting every day at my parents' house. Since the divorce with Adam was finalized, their living standards plummeted, and Kelly, with no face to show to her mom friends, became increasingly reclusive. Without jobs, the mother and the daughter blamed each other in a nasty fight, causing uproar with my parents almost every day. As for us, we are expanding our social circle smoothly at the new place. Sophia studies seriously at the university, immersing herself in seminar research. She has made new friends in addition to her high school ones and looks happy going to the university every day. It was a year of mostly studying, but now Sophia has grown enough to balance both study and play. I hope she goes out more from now on. Although the moving expenses were a bit of a burden, we have enough savings for her to choose her favorite path. The unreasonable task of the summer vacation assignment was an absurd incident, but someday we'll be able to laugh about it, saying, "Remember when that happened?" By then, we'll remember not the malicious faces of Kelly and her family, but the unity and effort of our own family.
I'm getting remarried to this person.
3 days after our divorce, my ex-husband showed up at my parents' house with his new fiancée to announce their marriage. He probably wanted to see my upset face. As he proudly looked at me, his eyes gleaming with triumph, he said,
As you can see, she's incredibly beautiful. Not only that, she's kind and has a calm demeanor. Her dad is a company president, so she comes from a distinguished family. She's the perfect wife.
I couldn't care less about my ex-husband's new partner, but I was curious about the type of woman who would accompany him to his ex-wife's family home. When I looked at her, she slightly lifted the hat she had been wearing deep over her eyes, and our eyes met. I was surprised to recognize her face. I froze for a moment, but then I burst into laughter, holding my stomach. I'm Evelyn, a 40-year-old working in IT. My husband, Daniel, was the same age as me. Daniel and I had been close since high school. In our senior year, Daniel and I were in the same class. He was a cheerful guy, always involved in some role during school festivals and sports events. He was also the captain of the soccer team, and was popular among both boys and girls. On the other hand, I was not the type to actively participate in events, and preferred reading books, being a shy person. Despite our differences, we ended up attending the same college, and were in the same department. He said to me,
You're Evelyn, right? We're at the same university. Do you live nearby? What department are you in? Have you made any friends?
As I never had male friends before, I was overwhelmed by him and fell silent. But he kept talking to me, and gradually I was able to converse with him, and we naturally became close. Daniel has always been a bit naive. For example,
I've been scouted. I'm thinking of joining an agency.
When he told me this, I checked the business card he had, and it was a suspicious-looking agency. When I asked, "Are you sure about this agency? I can't find it anywhere online," he said,
It's fine, but they're asking for a $5,000 joining fee, and I don't have that kind of money.
He was on the verge of falling for an obvious scam. As a serious person, I couldn't leave him alone, and as I took care of him, he said,
I can't live without you, Evelyn, the responsible one.
That's when I started thinking I couldn't leave him alone either, and we began dating. Once we started dating, I found his earnest, though somewhat misguided, efforts endearing. Perhaps it was my maternal instincts. After we both graduated from college, we landed jobs at separate companies. I was always the responsible one, and Daniel had a younger brother-like charm. Maybe it was our compatible personalities, but our relationship went smoothly, leading us naturally to marriage. We were happy. My husband worked hard and helped with the household chores. We got along great. In the midst of this happiness, we received some wonderful news. I was pregnant. I hoped the pregnancy would make my husband a bit more manly and reliable, but...
Isn't dinner ready yet?
I'm feeling a bit nauseous due to morning sickness. Maybe we can order takeout today.
Ugh, takeout. Just wait until you feel better and cook something.
He showed no consideration for me, a pregnant woman. Moreover, as my pregnancy progressed and my belly began to grow, he frequently made tactless comments like,
"You've really gained weight, huh? You look like a sumo wrestler."
Although I was often irritated by my husband, I made sure to visit my parents' house for breaks and avoid stress for the sake of our unborn child. Eventually, after a long pregnancy, I safely gave birth to a girl. We named her Stella. Although being a first-time parent was challenging and full of unknowns, I cherished the time spent with my daughter and husband. A year after Stella's birth, my maternity leave ended, and I returned to work. Originally, I worked full-time, but balancing work and childcare was physically and mentally more challenging than I anticipated. Eventually, after discussing with my husband and colleagues, I switched to part-time work. With my shift to part-time, my husband's sloppiness escalated.
"The bath isn't ready yet."
"Just heat up the bath yourself."
"What's the big deal? You're working part-time now. You must have some free time, right?"
And so on. When I was preparing dinner and Stella suddenly started crying, "Hey Daniel, I can't leave the stove right now. Can you check on Stella, maybe change her diaper?" When I asked him to,
No way. I absolutely can't change a diaper. It's too gross,"
he would exclaim. The days of parenting alone were tough, but I had become accustomed to the situation. Before I knew it, 8 years had passed. Stella was now 8 years old and less dependent, so I planned to focus more on my career. Just as I was gearing up for this new phase, my husband suddenly declared,
"I'm going to quit my job."
"What? Just when Stella is growing up and it's our time to shine, you're saying this all of a sudden?"
"I want to be something more than just an ordinary full-time employee."
He would exclaim something like that. Sometimes my husband would do things that surprised everyone, and I jokingly referred to these as his episodes. When he talked about quitting his job, I thought it was just another one of his strange episodes, and watched to see what would happen. However, his enthusiasm for changing jobs didn't wane. Eventually, without consulting me, he said,
"I found a new job and quit the old one. I start in 2 days."
I was ready to stop him if he was getting into something dubious, but it turned out to be a legitimate company, so I felt relieved. However, his episodes became even more frequent after joining the new company.
"The current president of my company is in his 30s, so young. One day I'll take over his position."
And he would also say things like,
"From now on, I'm going to be a president. You should respect me."
He would start saying things like that. My daughter and I were just dumbfounded by his behavior. If only it had stopped there, but his words and attitude worsened.
"You look older now. The girls at work are all young and cute."
"What? You're getting older too, right? Everyone ages. It's natural."
"True, but can't you try to be a bit more stylish? Look at this woman. She has 2 kids, yet she's still gorgeous."
He showed me a photo of a popular Instagrammer. I couldn't help but feel annoyed at being compared to such a person. Not to brag, but I thought I was pretty well put together for a 40-year-old who had a child. He dumps all the housework and childcare on me, and then he's all about young girls, cute girls. It's truly exasperating. Then my husband started working late, often not coming home until well after his usual time. "You've been coming home late recently."
"Is that so? It's just as usual."
"No, it's clearly later than usual. And for some reason, he was always particularly late on Tuesdays and Fridays, never coming home before 10 p.m. "Why are you always late on Tuesdays and Fridays?" When I asked, he suddenly became flustered.
"It's for a project. We only have meetings for it on Tuesdays and Fridays. What, you think I'm lying?"
His tone became harsh. He seemed quite agitated. "Okay, I understand." Saying just that, my husband showed a relieved expression, as if a weight had been lifted off his chest. Suspicious. It had always been like this since we were dating. When he lied or felt guilty about something, he would inevitably start talking fast and become angry. It was easy to tell when my husband's behavior changed. Thinking this, I decided to take action immediately. First, I checked his mobile phone while he was in the bath. I had an idea about his password. When I tried the password I suspected, the phone unlocked, just as I thought. Looking through his phone, I found a trove of evidence of infidelity. In the messages, "Are you free this Friday?
I'm happy. I can't wait to see you.
Aren't you worried about your wife?
She's so clueless, she won't notice. Totally fine."
I found conversations like that. There were also many affectionate photos of the two of them in the camera folder. The other woman appeared to be a junior colleague from his company. Trembling with anger, I transferred all the evidence to my own phone. With ample evidence gathered, I finally confronted my husband's behavior with a divorce proposal. At first, he was quite shaken and kept denying it, but when I showed him the evidence, he turned pale and couldn't find a way out.
"I'm sorry. Please don't divorce me."
"Weren't you cold and cheating because you wanted to divorce me?"
"No, it's not like that. It was just a momentary lapse. I don't want to leave you or Stella. Please."
I was filled with hatred and couldn't forgive my husband for his betrayal, but I couldn't make the decision to divorce thinking of our 8-year-old daughter. In the end, I demanded $7,000 as a settlement from the other woman and, on the condition that he completely cuts ties with her, decided against the divorce. The woman paid the amount in full without delay. Perhaps feeling awkward about having an affair with a colleague, she resigned from the company. For about 6 months, my husband seemed genuinely remorseful, but after a year, he returned to verbally abusing me as before. I couldn't forgive my husband for the affair and constant belittlement, and my feelings for him completely cooled. The reason we didn't divorce was because of our precious daughter. It seemed that my husband also cared deeply for her. He had always refused whenever I brought up divorce, but then, a week ago, he was the one who brought up the idea of divorce.
"Let's get divorced."
"What?"
"I've made up my mind. Let's divorce."
"Our marriage hasn't been great, but you've always refused divorce. Why now?" It's not that I didn't want to divorce. I was genuinely puzzled. I also thought that divorcing was the best thing for both of us, but my husband had been refusing it. And there were many chances to divorce before, so why now, I wondered.
"It's your fault. Ever since I cheated, you've changed. You never forgave me, no matter how many years passed. That's why I'm fed up."
He claimed the divorce was my fault. True, I hadn't forgiven him since that day. But my anger wasn't just about the affair. Sure, I still can't forgive you for the affair. But more than that, you've been verbally abusing me ever since. That's what I'm angry about.
"No, I say those things for your benefit. As a woman, you need to take care of the house properly. You need to maintain your beauty. You've been neglecting these efforts, so I was just pointing it out. That's why we're getting divorced. It's not my fault."
From his response, I realized he still didn't think he was at fault. The idea of a woman needing to be a certain way was repulsive. I repeatedly told him he was also responsible, but he wouldn't listen. Eventually, he insisted.
"It's not my fault. Understand that. So there won't be any alimony or distribution of property. Remember that."
He emphasized this point. Ah, I see. He was determined to be the one initiating the divorce and insistently claimed it was my fault. Something was off with him, suddenly suggesting divorce. I immediately thought he must be having another affair. As always, he was easy to read. He started talking fast and showing irritation just like before. In the past, I would have pressed him to find out why he suddenly wanted a divorce, but I no longer had that much interest in him. "Okay, I agree, let's get divorced. As you said, no need for alimony or property division, but I won't give up custody of our daughter."
"All right, that's fine."
He had always said how important our daughter was to him, yet he behaved like this. I was utterly disgusted. Soon after, I proceeded with the divorce proceedings, and we were officially divorced. I took my daughter and returned to my parents' house to live with them. My daughter didn't object to the divorce and wanted to come with me, saying, "Dad is hardly ever home, and he's mean to Mom. It's okay if we're apart. I just want Mom to be happy." She told me this with such kindness. I was planning to start a new life with my daughter and my parents, but just 3 days after the divorce, an event occurred that seemed like an immediate disturbance. One day, when I returned home from work, I saw Daniel and a blonde woman with long hair in front of the house. The woman was wearing a deep hat, and her face was not clearly visible. I had a bad feeling. I wanted to ignore them if possible. But since they were in front of my parents' house, I couldn't just leave them there. As I approached them, Daniel came towards me with a smug smile. "What do you want?" I cautiously asked my ex-husband.
I remarried this woman,
He said, his eyes shining with triumph. Remarried just 3 days after our divorce? It must have overlapped with our marriage. And to come and boast about it so loudly? What kind of nerve? I thought maybe he was having another one of his weird episodes and felt disgusted. I wondered if my ex-husband was starting another one of his weird episodes, which was quite irritating. I was blatantly showing my displeasure, but Daniel seemed so engrossed in his own story that he didn't seem to notice. He started talking about his new wife, even though I hadn't asked him to.
Just look. She's incredibly beautiful, kind, gentle, and apparently her dad is a CEO. So she's from a prestigious family. She's the perfect wife.
He boasted. I couldn't care less about Daniel's new wife, but I wondered what kind of woman would follow him to his ex's family home. Then the woman slightly lifted her hat, and our eyes met. I was surprised to recognize her and froze for a moment. The woman saw my face, and her face turned pale. I couldn't help but to burst into laughter. Stop it! It's too funny.
What are you laughing at?
Because I know this woman well. The convenient man you talked about was Daniel, huh? As I said this, Daniel casually said,
What? You two know each other? It's a small world, isn't it?
He seemed impressed by the coincidence. However, upon seeing me, the woman started to try to escape. Daniel, I'm feeling unwell. Can we go home now? She was Grace, and she seemed desperate to leave the place, but Daniel stopped her.
Grace, what's wrong all of a sudden? I had no idea you knew Evelyn.
He said, laughing. Grace was shaking Daniel's arm, saying, Can we stop, please? We should go home. But my ex-husband showed no sign of leaving.
What kind of acquaintance are you?
He asked me, so I explained. Grace used to be my colleague at the company. We had worked together for 7 years. As I explained my relationship with Grace, she seemed very agitated and uncomfortable. But Daniel, oblivious to Grace's state, kept talking about how perfect she was. Daniel kept saying that Grace is a 29-year-old beauty who graduated from a prestigious university, has a calmer and kinder temperament than me. Furthermore, he repeatedly mentioned that she's a great cook, a CEO's daughter, and the perfect wife.
Good thing I divorced you. Sorry I got all the happiness, huh?
He said sarcastically. Wow, she sounds amazing, I replied, but I couldn't stop grinning. Daniel was getting irritated seeing me not crying or showing regret, just grinning.
Why are you laughing? You should be more upset. Cry and wail. Or is it because my new wife is so perfect that you're speechless?
Ah, I see. He came to show off his new wife. Probably wanting to see me upset, but I felt neither envy nor regret. I had no feelings for my ex-husband anymore, and I didn't care where or with whom he remarried. The fact that his new wife was Grace was just too funny. Seeing Grace turn pale, I decided it was time to reveal her true identity to Daniel. Ah, sorry. I was just surprised that you married Grace.
I guess Grace was famous at your company too, huh? For being beautiful and high spec? A woman like that marrying me, of course, you're shocked.
Yes, she was famous, I said. Then Grace glared at me fiercely and said, Don't say anything unnecessary. She looked at me with such an expression. Grace, you said you were having an affair with a married man before you left the company, but I'm shocked it was Daniel.
Grace, that's not good. You can't just go around talking about affairs.
Daniel was momentarily taken aback when his affair before our divorce came to light, but he quickly became defiant. Typical of my foolish husband. He seemed to be under the mistaken impression that he couldn't be sued for alimony since we were already divorced. Since Daniel seemed to be so enamored with Grace, I decided to tell him more about her. Grace was promoted quickly at the company, maybe because she was involved with the CEO.
Hey.
When was it? You said loudly during lunch break that all men are just wallets, right? It's easy to hook them by selling your body?
What?
You were basically sleeping around with the bosses for promotions and money, right? You were known as a bitch among the employees, weren't you?
That's a lie. You must be mistaken.
Right, but getting involved with the CEO was a mistake. His wife found out about the affair and demanded a huge settlement. Eventually, you were fired by the CEO's wife's decision, right?
Stop it. Don't just make things up. It's not true, Daniel. She's just saying this because she's jealous of us.
Grace was desperately trying to convince Daniel. Then, can you call this a lie? I showed them photos on my mobile phone. The photo showed Grace when she was drunk. It was a video from a karaoke session at the second part of the company's year-end party.
Men are all just wallets. Just buy ready-made meals and plate them, and they'll think you're a great cook. Just take off a little, and they'll pay right away. I can even pay off my debts with this.
Grace, holding the mic and having a blast. I wonder where her calm personality went.
Grace, were all the meals you cooked just ready-made dishes? And what about these debts?
Yes, Grace had a lot of debt. Debts from her affairs with married men. A panicking Daniel asked Grace for an explanation, but she fell silent. Ah, and Grace, you're not 29, you're 38. You're 2 years younger than me. Grace had also lied about her age. Indeed, she looked pretty and young, thanks to the money from men used for Botox and plastic surgery. But claiming to be 29 was too much. I couldn't help but laugh at Daniel's lack of judgment in women. Ah, and she's not a CEO's daughter. Grace's dad works in a factory.
So that's why she never introduced her family to me. It's all lies. Grace, is there anything true in what you said?
Daniel, red with anger, confronted Grace. I'm sorry. It's impressive how she piled up so many lies. Daniel, too, is questionable for not noticing any of it. Typical of him. He must have judged solely based on youth and beauty, never really seeing what's inside. That's the kind of person he is. He was in shock to learn that the perfect Grace he thought he knew was all lies. Daniel and Grace had met about 6 months ago, with her saying, I found a good man, even though he's married. They met at a bar where people sit together randomly. I wonder about my ex-husband going to such places while married. Grace targeted my ex-husband because he had told her,
I work for a major company and have a good salary.
Hearing this, Grace saw Daniel as a good catch. Even though she knew he was married, seeing the ring on his left ring finger, she must have thought she could pay off her debts with Daniel's money. Before long, Daniel started saying he wanted to divorce his wife and remarry Grace, believing that if they divorced now, he wouldn't have to pay alimony, and with his income, they could live well. So she decided to marry him. Daniel decided to leave his beloved daughter for the younger Grace, thinking he could have more children with her. Daniel, looking at the apologetic Grace with contempt, said,
It's impossible after so many lies. It's just impossible.
He shouted that. I wondered which face he was talking with. It wasn't just Grace who had been lying. Daniel, you don't work for a major company, do you? And you're earning more than me? Good one. You earn less than me.
That's...
A flustered ex-husband. Knowing Daniel's lies, Grace became furious.
What? You're kidding me. I married you thinking you were rich. What a letdown.
She pushed him angrily.
Ow!
Daniel, stunned and trembling, watched as Grace transformed. He loved the young, beautiful, good-looking CEO's daughter, Grace, and she loved the rich Daniel. All their lies came to light, and their relationship seemed to crumble. I couldn't believe I had married such a terrible man, but at the same time, I was glad I divorced. The two liars were perfect for each other. I told them I couldn't deal with them anymore and just mentioned claiming the divorce settlement before going inside. Then,
You can't claim a divorce settlement for me. We're already divorced.
He blurted out something foolish. Oh, please. Even if you know about the infidelity within 3 years of divorce, you can still claim alimony. Go check it out yourself. And thanks for coming here and telling me about your infidelity. I wouldn't have known otherwise. Their faces turned pale upon hearing this. I'll discuss the future through a lawyer. I finally entered the house. The two continued arguing loudly outside and were eventually taken away by the police for causing a disturbance. Later, I received the alimony through a lawyer. The moneyless couple borrowed to pay me in full. I was relieved to cut ties with such terrible people. I heard later that Daniel filed for divorce mediation with Grace. He had to borrow for the mediation costs, and now he's probably drowning in debt. Daniel and Grace were both in debt and in the middle of a messy legal battle. As for me, I vowed to be happy for my daughter's sake.
Are you even related by blood? If you're not, you're just a stranger. Strangers aren't welcomed in our home.
When I went to my son's fiance's house for a family meeting, that's what the fiance bluntly said.
Even Leo is bothered by you. We don't want any further involvement, so please leave.
With those words, she closed the front door on me. I was too shocked to move. My son is my husband's child from a previous relationship. After my husband passed away at a young age, I devoted myself to raising my son. We never really fought, and I thought we had a good relationship. The fiance's words pierced my heart. I couldn't believe she thought I was a nuisance. For my son's sake, I decided to cut off contact myself. However, I later witnessed a shocking scene that revealed the true nature of the fiancé and her family. I knew I had to tell my son, but worried that reaching out might bother him. While I was torn about what to do, my son came to visit. This led to even more secrets about his fiancé's family being exposed. I'm Wendy, 71 years old. Now I live alone. I first married at 25, but he was a womanizer. Every day was filled with endless arguments. The marriage fell apart after 2 years. Since then, I focused solely on my work, avoiding love. Dad, concerned about my solitary life, introduced me to a man. The man was my future husband.
Pleased to meet you. I'm Simon. I owe a lot to your father. Ha ha. We just met at a golf range, but hit it off. He's a great guy. I think you two will get along. Ha 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 ha.
Dad said with a hearty laugh, introducing someone he barely knew from a golf range. What was he thinking? Could this guy be trouble? Ignoring my skepticism, Simon was all smiles. Turns out he was a doctor. Being a doctor, you must be popular with the ladies. Why are you still single?
Well, actually, I have a child.
Oh. Taken aback, I watched him scratch his cheek and give a wry smile.
My ex-wife was only after money. She neglected our child, preferring to party. I divorced her and took custody of the child.
I'm sorry, that was thoughtless of me.
No, don't worry. I'm not hiding anything. It's just having a child tends to be a deal breaker for many.
Oh, he sighed, looking troubled.
That's not the only issue. Some women approach me for money, trying to get close to my son.
That's tough. How old is your son?
He's 5, full of energy and hardly ever sleeps.
My husband chuckled. He seemed like such a good person. Our conversations were enjoyable, and I felt at ease with him. Gradually, I found myself drawn to him, and we started dating. His son Leo barely spoke to me at first. He hardly responded when I tried to talk to him. His preschool friends recently pointed out that he doesn't have a mom. He's been down since then. I see. Kids can be cruel sometimes. Perhaps the friends just stated the fact that he had no mom. Despite the harsh reality, my son was deeply hurt. I tried my best to cheer him up, engaging him in conversation. Leo, want to play together?
Sure.
Nothing seemed to work, and I felt my heart breaking. Never having had a child before, I didn't know how to connect with a child. Despite several attempts, his attitude remained unchanged. I almost gave up, thinking he might never accept me. Then, one day, I was making lunch and decided to prepare a kid-friendly meal. Inspired by the kids' meals at family restaurants, I made a fun plate with an omelet, sausages cut into octopus shapes, and Neapolitan spaghetti, and even planted a little frog on it. At that time, I didn't know my son's likes or dislikes, so I figured offering a variety would surely have something he'd eat. However, when he saw the lunch I made, his eyes lit up. "Wow, this looks like a restaurant." "Really? I'm so glad. Can I eat all of this?" "Of course, I made it just for you, Leo." "Yay!" For the first time, I saw him acting his age, and I was close to tears. After that, he started talking to me a lot, as if his previous attitude had been a lie. When my son started elementary school, I got married to my husband. His son welcomed me, treating me like a real mother. On holidays, we'd go camping or taking trips, filling our days with joy. But those happy days didn't last long. On his way to work, my husband was hit by a drunk driver and passed away. We had only been married for 3 years. It was supposed to be just the beginning, but it turned into a sudden farewell. I couldn't accept the reality. He was so looking forward to our son's growth. Why did this have to happen so soon? I couldn't stop the tears, clinging to my cold husband. As I cried, someone came beside me. "Dad?" It was my son. He stared blankly at the white-covered body of my husband. The nurses desperately tried to stop us from seeing the severely damaged body from the accident. Seeing my son struggling to accept the reality, I suddenly became calm. It wasn't the time to cry. I'm a mom. I have to be there for my child. Wiping my tears, I hugged my son tightly. As he began to grasp the situation, he cried loudly in my arms. My husband was a doctor, and since he earned well, I had quit my job, but I quickly started job hunting. Luckily, having graduated from a business school and holding a CPA certificate, I managed to get a job in accounting. My days were busy with housework, childcare, and work. But watching my son grow was a joy, and I raised him with all the love I had, for both me and his late father. Then my son became a doctor. "I want to save people like Dad did." He was interested in emergency medicine and worked in an emergency room at a graduate school hospital. He would visit home sometimes, but he often got called back to the hospital, looking very busy. I worried about his future, wondering if he ever even had time for love or marriage. Then one day he called, telling me he wanted to get married. He was dating a woman who worked as a medical secretary at the same hospital, and it turned out she lived nearby. "Hey, I told Emily's family that I want to have a family meeting. They suggested we do it at their place. Mom, you quit your job and you have some time, right? I want you to go there." "Sure. I mean, I'm marrying into their family, so it's only right that we make the effort to visit them." "That's a relief to hear. I'd like to join you, but I need to stop by work that day. Can you go ahead and I'll follow later?" "Oh dear, that's tough. I'm fine with it, but don't push yourself too hard, Leo." "Thanks. I appreciate it." On the day, I arrived at the address my son had given me, with a gift in hand. When I rang the doorbell, a beautiful woman answered. "Hello, thank you for inviting me. I'm Leo's mom." As I greeted her, she glared at me, astonishingly. You're Wendy, right? I've heard about you. Sorry to say this, but can you leave?" "What?" I was momentarily lost for words. As I stood there confused, her parents came out of the house. "So you're Leo's mom. You don't look anything like him." "Well, of course not. They're not related by blood, right?" "What are you talking about?" "Leo told us you're not his real mom. That's right, isn't it?" "That's true, but I've always thought of us as a real family." Before I could finish, the fiancé interrupted me. "So you're not related by blood? Then you're a stranger, right? Strangers shouldn't enter our house." I was taken aback by the sudden shouting. I haven't done anything that would make me angry. Why was I being treated like this? The three of them looked at me as if I were something filthy. Leo said it too. You're not his real mom, but you keep acting like one, and it's bothersome. You keep calling, and it's annoying. But when I called the other day, he didn't mention any of this. That's just because Leo is too kind. You should realize it yourself. No, that can't be true. That's how it is. So please leave. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. With that, they closed the front door on me. I stood there in shock for a while. I had never even had an argument with my son. Had he always found me bothersome? Indeed, I used to worry whether he was eating properly, and would deliver him homemade side dishes on my days off. He always thanked me. But was it all a lie? I don't remember much after that. Somehow, I managed to get home, but couldn't do anything for a while. I had imagined a future where my son got married, and I would sometimes see my grandchildren. But now, my hopes were shattered. Still, I wished for my son's happiness more than anything. If he really thought of me as a nuisance, then I would stop reaching out to him. And so I stopped contacting my son. It was a week later. On my way to the supermarket for dinner shopping, I saw something shocking. My son's fiance's parents were being confronted by a tough-looking man.
Hey, you're short on cash. I'm sorry, we'll pay you the rest next month. How you gonna repay it, you jobless gambling addicts? Our daughter's marrying a doctor from a big hospital.
Yeah, he's always working and seems to have a lot of money, so it'll be fine. I couldn't hide my shock at their words, talking as if they were counting on my son's money from the start. I wonder if my son knows about this.
All right, I don't care as long as I get my money back. Remember, if it's even slightly short.
They were repeatedly trying to calm down a tough-looking man, but that didn't matter to me. I couldn't stand the thought of them using the money my son worked so hard to earn. Anger welled up in me, and I confronted them. Wait a minute. Is what you just said true?
Whoa, what do you want? We told you to stay out of it.
I can't just ignore this. You're planning to use my son's money to pay off your debts. I have to tell him. As I reached for my mobile phone, they panicked and stopped me. Then they snatched my phone away, laughing. Really? You know Leo. He's so busy with work that he can't do anything else. He even stayed overnight at work yesterday. Imagine how he'd feel getting a call from a non-biological mom like you at this hour.
It's annoying, right? Interrupting his work for no urgent matter.
That's... My heart pounded with tension. If you care about your son, cut ties with us. A woman like you is just in the way.
If you don't want to be hated by your son anymore, stop contacting him.
They laughed crudely. I felt frustrated at my inability to respond. I truly cared about my son. I thought of him as family and wanted nothing but happiness for him. But their remarks about blood ties shook me. I had never had my own child. Had I been a good parent? I felt my confidence waver, as if the ground was shaking beneath me. In the end, I couldn't tell my son anything. A month later, the doorbell rang, and there was my son, Leo. Leo, what are you doing here?
Mom, sorry. There's something I really need to talk to you about.
Come in first. I was sweating from surprise and tension. I never felt this awkward just talking to my son. I served coffee, and he pulled an envelope out of his bag.
Emily, my fiancée, she said since you refused to attend our wedding, there's no need to send an invitation, but I still wanted to give it to you. Are you free on the wedding day?
What? I didn't even know there was a wedding.
What do you mean?
My son looked at me puzzled. I decided to tell him everything. How I was turned away when I went to greet them. How they cut ties with me. About his fiance's parents' debts? After hearing everything, my son held my hand.
I've never once thought of you as a burden, Mom. It's all lies.
Leo, I'm sorry. I doubted whether I'd been a good mom and believed what they said.
Mom, you're family. Blood doesn't matter. But I need to check on Emily's family. Sorry, I have to go, Mom.
Take care. My son seemed to ponder something, then hurriedly left the house. He's always been quick to act on his decisions. Something must be up this time, too. I watched my son leave with a mix of confusion and concern. A month later, he suddenly showed up at home again. What's going on? Why are you carrying such a big bag?
I left home. I'm sorry, but can I stay here for a while?
Sure, but did you talk to Emily about this?
Huh? I left a note. She should understand the situation.
A note?
Yeah, I wrote that I'm calling off the marriage.
His calm demeanor left me in shock. I never imagined him coming back home, especially when he was about to get married. It's fine by me.
Thanks, I'll use my old room.
He carried his belongings to his old room. As I was preparing dinner, there was a loud knocking at the front door. I opened it to find his fiancée, Emily, and her parents glaring furiously. It's all your fault. What do you mean, showing up unannounced like this? Because of you, Leo left. What are you going to do about it? Emily's shouting was followed by her dad's angry voice.
Did you tell them about us, you wicked woman?
I wasn't scared at all by their red-faced fury. It seemed almost comical. That's right, I told them. You were trying to make my son pay off your debts, and you seem to love gambling too. Are you marrying him just for his money? Of course. Leo hardly spends any money since he's always working. It's my right to spend as I please as his fiancée. I can't let my son marry someone who's so openly after his money. Could you please leave? Why should I listen to you? I did you a favor by agreeing to marry your boring, charmless son. He's got nothing but his money. Is that so? I spoke towards the living room, and my son appeared. Seeing him, the three turned pale. What? Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be at work today, huh?
I took the day off. More importantly, I heard everything.
No, I mean, that was all lies.
Really? Then these photos are lies too.
He handed Emily dozens of photos. They showed her entering a hotel with an unknown man from various angles.
Looks like you met him several times while I was at work.
This is different. He's just a friend. Emily was flustered, her words stumbling.
A just friend you go to hotels with every time, huh?
No, that's not...
Emily, what have you done? Leo, I'm so sorry for my foolish daughter. Please forgive us.
I'm sorry, too. Please forgive us. While Emily turned blue and trembled, her parents apologized. My son handed them something that looked like an investigation report.
I'm sorry, but I had a detective look into both of you. You asked for a loan before, saying your business was about to fail. But the report says there's no such business. What's that about? Well, the business did fail eventually. And you've been gambling daily since then? Yeah, due to the shock and stress. But the report says you've been gambling for years, and you still owe about $100,000, right?
The two of them went silent, dripping with cold sweat. When I heard about the investigation results from the private detective agency for my son, I couldn't contain my anger. His fiancée had been unfaithful, and her parents were nothing but debtors. I couldn't stand by their audacity, trying to mooch off my son. I won't allow your marriage with my son. Wait, Leo, I was wrong. I was just so lonely. You're always working and never home. But I won't do it again. If you hate paying off Dad and Mom's debts, I'll cut ties with them. Please reconsider our marriage.
How can you say that? Cutting ties with your own parents.
That's right. What an ungrateful child, Leo. Please lend us some money, just a little. We promise to pay back.
Yes, just a bit. Lend us $100K. We'll pay it back and do anything you say.
Lies. How are you going to pay back without a job?
Shut up, you.
The fiancé's family started arguing among themselves. My son and I could only stand there dumbfounded. These people only think about themselves. They just want to save their own skin no matter what. Even though they are family, their ugly bickering continued.
Can you please take your fight outside?
Leo, I'm so sorry. How embarrassing. With these mannerless people. But don't worry, I'll cut ties with my parents. My son brushed off the fiancé's pleading hand, as if it were something filthy.
I have no intention of marrying you, Emily, or having any relationship with your parents.
What? Why? You said you loved me. How could you? The fiancé, still thinking there was a chance, gave me a headache. My son sighed exaggeratedly.
Who would marry someone with no appeal other than money? Besides, you'll be paying for the infidelity and all the wedding cancellation fees.
What? I didn't know about that. I can't pay that.
Not my problem. I've already consulted a lawyer. Contact them for any further communication.
Please forgive me. I was wrong. I've even quit my job. I can't afford any compensation or cancellation fees for the wedding. The fiancé began to sob and apologize profusely. The sight was almost comical. If only she hadn't cheated in the first place.
I don't want to see your face anymore. If you don't leave, I'll call the police.
The fiancé, in tears, must have realized it was over. She just kept crying. But crying doesn't excuse her. She looked up at her parents. Dad, Mom, lend me the money for the compensation and wedding cancellation?
We don't have that kind of money.
Our daughter is in trouble. Can't you do something?
There's nothing I can do.
That's right. If you hadn't cheated, things might have worked out. What a foolish child. And so the fiancé's family started arguing again. My son and I just held our heads, watching their absurd conversation. How can you say that? You were the ones who borrowed money from Leo.
That's right. We have our own debts, so we can't afford to take care of someone else's problem. Rather, you should pay off our debts.
Why should I? Exactly. Emily is still young enough to work, but we're over 60, you know.
That's right. Earn money for your parents. We're family, aren't we?
Don't be ridiculous. You're no longer parents or anything to me. Stay out of my life for good. Frustrated with his constantly quarreling fiancé and her parents, our son finally forced them out of our house. They cried and apologized, but it was too late. What a spectacle it had been. They stormed in like a tempest, causing a ruckus, and then disappeared without even an apology. Even if you're related by blood, some families just don't work out.
Yeah.
Exhausted, we let out deep sighs. Afterwards, our son broke up with Emily and focused on his job. Emily tried to find work in medical administration, but it seemed difficult. Rumors of their breakup had spread through the hospital and beyond, hampering her chances. Even her parents' gambling issues became known, leading to rejections everywhere. I heard she's juggling part-time jobs and living a poor life. As for her parents, burdened by debts, they apparently fled, leaving their house to become a property for sale. I'm relieved my son is free from such selfish people. Had they married, his hard-earned money would have been squandered. It's not just about money. Building a good relationship with people who only see him as a walking ATM would have been tough. Despite being busy, my son visits home more often. He takes time off to celebrate birthdays. Such a kind and wonderful son. Blood relation doesn't define family. My son is my precious and only family, and I say that with confidence now, and I sincerely wish for his happiness. Give my precious Carly to a single mother? No way.
My girlfriend's mom sneered, her words dripping with disdain. That's right. Show me your house next time. A home reflects a family status, after all. Let's see if you're worthy of my Carly. Her father's unpleasant laughter echoed inside me, tearing something apart. My name is Judas. I'm a 45-year-old bachelor. working in the IT industry and earning extra on the side. All these years, I've been working hard to send money back to Mom, trying to repay her in some way. I was raised by a single mother, just Mom. After she gave birth to me, Dad disappeared, so I never knew my real dad's face.
He must have hated responsibility and ran away.
Mom would say, laughing it off like it was a joke, but it must have been hard for her. Moreover, my dad had left her with a huge debt.
Dad pleaded for help, so I signed for his debts, though we'd be a couple in the future. Such a foolish thing to do.
Laughing, Mom continued.
But you know what? He did have good looks, at least. Thanks to that, I was able to have a handsome son like you, Judas. I'm happy about that.
Mom laughed heartily as she said that. Even though I grew up in a single-parent home, drowning in debt, I was raised with plenty of love from Mom. That's why, as an adult, I've worked hard to make life easier for her, to keep her from suffering because of money. Driven by this thought, I had reached this age when Mom suddenly said,
I'd like to see my grandchild soon.
That made me reflect on my own age.
Don't you have a girlfriend?
Mom asked, sounding concerned. Yes, I do, I replied shortly. Her name is Carly. She's an elite banker, a graduate of a prestigious women's university. She often reminded me of that. We met at a mixer, meant just to balance out the numbers.
Oh, Judas. You're from a single-parent family. That's so sad.
Despite her insensitive comment when we first met, Carly became quite attached to me, and somehow we ended up in a relationship. It's been exactly 1 year now.
Judas, being a single mom's kid, you must have been poor when you were little, right? Poor thing. My parents are elites, super rich.
Carly would say things like that every now and then. Honestly, it didn't feel great, but Carly was blunt and meant no harm. She's 10 years younger than me, so I tried not to mind her sometimes disrespectful way of speaking.
Judas, I want to get married.
Every time we met, she would say this, and I would skillfully dodge the topic. But now, I began to feel a bit guilty for possibly being insincere. She's outspoken, but a bright girl. Maybe with Carly, I could build a happy home. Thinking seriously about this, Mom asked,
Have you never thought about marriage before?
No, not until you mentioned it, Mom.
That's not good. Good girls get snapped up quickly. You should have a proper talk with her.
Okay, I will. Later, when I brought up marriage with Carly, she said,
Too late, Judas. I was about to become an old maid waiting for you.
Her reaction was more intense than I expected, and I took a step back.
Then let's visit my parents' house next week for introductions.
Next week?
Yes, next week. You're not as busy as me, Judas, right?
Her slightly annoying way of speaking was typical of someone 10 years younger. Maybe that's just how young people are these days, I thought, as I agreed to her request. And then came the day I had promised to meet with her. I got dressed up, and with a nervous expression was led to her family home.
Don't be so tense,
she said, laughing. But looking at Carly's laughter, I felt my face stiffen even more. After all, I was about to face a major moment as a man, asking Carly's father for her hand.
We're here.
She pointed to a high-rise tower apartment where her parents lived.
It's not a rental, you know.
Carly said this as she led me inside, making me wonder why she cared so much about that. But I just nodded in agreement. And now, here I am, standing in front of the entrance to Carly's parents' home. Don't be nervous.
We're home.
Oblivious to my thoughts, Carly opened the door and pulled me inside.
Welcome back, Carly. Oh, hello there. Are you Judas?
Nice to meet you. I'm Judas. As I greeted her, Kathy's mother looked me up and down and laughed mockingly through her nose.
I've heard you were a single mother's child and was worried about your social manners. But you can at least greet people, it seems.
I was taken aback by Carly's mother's words. Even though we were about to become family, this was our first meeting. Despite her rude remarks, I tried to remain composed and handed her the sweets I brought as a gift. Please, if you'd like, enjoy these with Carly and your family. We don't need such a poor-looking gift. Her father's words made me awkwardly retract my offer, apologizing. I thought they'd like it since Mom loves these sweets.
Judas, there's something important we need to discuss.
Ah, yes. Right, the marriage talk. I braced myself to ask for Carly's hand.
When can you quit your job?
Pardon? I asked back in confusion.
Well, we need you to quit soon and focus on being a house husband. Otherwise, Carly can't work freely. Mom, you're rushing things. Not at all. You're not the quickest learner, so you'll need time, and there's a limit to how much time we can give you.
Right, Carly. You'll have to support him now. You need to work hard and get promoted fast.
Don't worry. I'm a super elite among elite bankers.
As the three of them continued the conversation without me, I couldn't help but interject. What are you talking about?
Marriage, of course.
Carly's mother continued in a patronizing tone.
As you know, my Carly graduated from a top women's university. She's an elite, unlike a single mother's child like you.
Her contempt was so evident that I couldn't hide my disgust.
Of course, it's not just about university. Carly is working hard as an elite banker. Housework is nothing but a hindrance to her. That's why we were looking for a good housekeeper.
That's why we found you. You're just a lowly IT worker from a single mother's home, without money. It's a good deal for you if Carly supports you. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I opened up, ready to confront Carly's parents with all the questions that had been building up. You keep demeaning single mothers, but what's wrong with being raised by one? Mom raised me well all by herself, and for your information, I'm not struggling financially. Stop belittling me and my mom with your baseless prejudice.
Did you go to college?
Pardon?
Did you attend college?
No, I didn't. I couldn't afford it. So I started working right after high school. Upon hearing that, Carly's parents started laughing uproariously.
Not struggling financially without a college degree? That's the problem with single mothers. They only see things from their narrow perspective.
Excuse me.
Judas, what is it? To raise a top-notch person, you need money. For tuition at elite schools, and for the cost of education that shapes a refined character. Do you understand?
Carly's mother spoke smugly, and I glared at her quietly.
So someone raised by a poor single mother like you is third-rate or less. Do you even know where my husband works?
With that, Carly's mother proudly announced the name of the company where her husband worked.
You're poor, but you must know the name, right? Only a man as high status as my husband is suitable for Carly.
Did you actually think you were going to marry Carly?
Stop it, Dad. Judas and I will be married, but it's only for mutual benefit. There will be no romantic relationship between us.
Carly then turned to me and said,
Right, Judas?
Carly, convinced she's right, ignored everything I said.
Judas will do my housework for me. I don't have time for it if I want to succeed. Oh, and I don't want kids with Judas either. But that's fine, right? It'll get you out of your poor life. Though I can't take care of your mom. Maybe you should just cut ties with her. Oh, I just had a great idea.
Carly laughed loudly, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Wait a minute. That sounds like you're treating me like a housekeeper.
Well, yes.
What?
You'll become my housekeeper. That's why you're marrying me.
I was stunned by Carly's words. What are you talking about? If you want a housekeeper, hire one. Marrying someone just because you want a housekeeper? What kind of logic is that?
Well, I don't want a stranger wandering around my house. I have the right to choose, right? I think you'd be perfect as my housekeeper. Why are you so angry?
I was dumbfounded by Carly's nonchalant attitude. Right, Carly hadn't changed since we met. She always mocked me for being a single mother's child and laughed at my poverty. I thought Carly was just young and blunt, but I was wrong. She looked down on me from the beginning, seeing me not as a partner, but as a housekeeper. Overwhelmed by this harsh reality, Carly's mother spoke.
A poor person from a single mother's family can't possibly be worthy of my precious Carly. You're just her housekeeper.
She sneered at me, looking down. That's right. Show us your house sometime. A home reflects its family status. Let's see if you're suitable for my Carly, though I doubt there's any need for that. Carly's father's mocking laughter echoed in me, and something inside me tore apart. I could end this discomfort by walking away now, but I couldn't let it go. I could tolerate their mockery of me, but not the insult to my mom who raised me all by herself. So you're mocking me and my mom for being poor? What are you talking about? We've been saying that from the start. I quietly replied. I understand. Next month is my mom's birthday party. Oh, even poor people throw parties?
It must be a tiny party, right?
Ignoring Carly's parents' sarcasm, I continued. It's a grand party with close friends and family of my mom. How about it? Will you attend? You might change your mind about us being poor.
What is this, Judas? Do you know some rich people? Pfft, barring the tiger's might, aren't we? But after all, a poor person's friends are just poor people too. Just the best among the lowly, right? Trying to compete with us? Typical single mother upbringing, no brains.
Well, let's just see how rich your acquaintances are. Maybe it'll change our minds. As they mocked me, I emotionlessly said, I'll inform you of the date later, and left the unpleasant family. Hello, Mom. Sorry to bother you, but there's something I need to ask. There are some people I'd like to invite to your party next month. And so I made a request to Mom. And then came the day of Mom's birthday party. I went to pick up Carly and her parents in my car to bring them to my family home for the party. Sorry to keep you waiting. Please get in.
What a poor-looking car.
At least get a Mercedes or something.
Judas, this car is so small.
Ignoring their complaints about my average-priced car, I drove on.
Where are you taking us?
It's my family home, I replied shortly. It's a bit away from the city center, surrounded by lush greenery. I see. The countryside is cheaper, isn't it?
Poor thing. When you have no money, you have to live in such inconvenient places. The countryside has nothing. I could never live in such a place. Poor Judas.
I focused on driving, amazed at their endless stream of insults. Listening to them was pointless. After about 30 minutes, I welcomed Carly and her parents to my family home, relieved to escape the uncomfortable conversation. What is this house? It's like a rabbit hutch.
Don't be so harsh. It's impressive for a single mother to own a house. Well, my home is a tower apartment, not a rental, but owned.
As soon as they entered, the three of them began their crass laughter, shocking all the guests already at the party. Their raucous behavior was certainly leaving the worst impression on everyone. My home, often complimented for its stylish resort cottage vibe, seemed no better than a rabbit hutch to these three. To them, anything outside a city tower apartment must look like a hovel for the poor.
Nice to meet you. I'm Judas's mom. Thank you for coming to my birthday party. Are you the Carly that Judas mentioned?
Mom, sensing the tension, gently tried to engage with Carly.
Yes, nice to meet you, Auntie. I'm Carly. If Judas told you, then it's simple. We're getting married, but only because I need a housekeeper. So I won't support you or call you mother-in-law.
Carly's parents chimed in, completely disregarding Mom's kindness.
Just as I thought, poor people like single mothers attract more of their kind. Look at all these guests. They all have the look of poverty. I'm scared.
And thus they began to insult all the guests at Mom's birthday party. Like a group of plague bearers, probably all low-educated. As the three of them spoke their minds freely, the room began to buzz with whispers, but neither Mom nor I made any move to stop them. We had foreseen this situation, and had even anticipated it. We had informed the guests beforehand that their behavior was part of a sort of sideshow. It turned out even worse than we had conveyed, making the atmosphere more unpleasant than expected. But aside from that, everything was going as planned. So why did you invite us to this rabbit hutch?
What a waste of time. Not a house worth visiting. Don't say that, Dad and Mom. We knew this, didn't we?
The three of them, still laughing loudly, must not have realized yet. They were unknowingly setting the stage for their own downfall with their own actions. I almost smirked at the thought, but composed myself and began to speak. There's someone I'd really like you to meet.
Someone you want us to meet?
Yes, I'm sure you'll be surprised. I paused for a moment before calling out that person's name and leading them over to Carly's father. Carly's father, who had been mocking me until then, suddenly turned pale as he faced the individual. What are you doing here? Carly's father trembled as the man standing next to me furrowed his brow in displeasure. What are you doing in a place like this? President, why are you here? Carly's father, panicking at the sudden appearance of his company's president, was ignored as the man, referred to as the president, replied calmly but sternly. Why? Today is the birthday party of a major shareholder in our company. I was kindly invited. I thought you were here for the same reason, but apparently not. Major shareholder's birthday party? You can't be serious. Carly's father quickly looked at my mother.
Yes, I'm that major shareholder. I own more than 50% of your company's shares.
My mom smiled warmly, leaving Carly's father speechless. That's impossible. A poor person like you can't be. Oh, you still insult our company's major shareholder in front of me? Carly's father shrank back in fear. It was understandable. He had been belittling and looking down upon a major shareholder of his company until just now. Moreover, owning over 50% of the company's shares meant having the right to single-handedly pass ordinary resolutions at shareholders' meetings and, in some cases, make almost all the company's key decisions, including appointing or dismissing directors. In other words, insulting a major shareholder was tantamount to antagonizing the president of his own company. Despite knowing this, or perhaps not realizing it, he had insulted the major shareholder in front of the president. Such folly was incomparable. Your name was Carly, right?
Branch manager?
A man referred to as the branch manager stepped in front of Carly and sighed deeply. I thought you were a bright and capable young woman, but I overestimated you.
No, that's not true. I'm very capable. I can live up to the branch manager's expectations.
Then why don't you know the face of one of our bank's most valued customers?
Huh?
That lady is a VIP client at your bank.
What?
Carly gasped at my mother in disbelief.
Yes, I trust your bank with a substantial amount of money. I've been treated very well, and I'm truly grateful.
Mom smiled, revealing herself to be a highly valued customer of the bank. Banks operate based on the money deposited with them. Therefore, individuals who deposit large sums of money are considered valued customers and are treated accordingly. Such clients are crucial to banks. It would be impossible for the branch manager to remain silent when such a valued individual is belittled.
How could this be? Someone living in a house like this can't be a major shareholder or a VIP bank client.
Carly's mother seemed unable to accept reality, closing her eyes and covering her ears. A sad case of denial. A perfect end for someone who viewed the world through their own biased lens. The trio turned pale and shook their heads in denial at a situation worse than they could have ever imagined. It's not what you think, President. This is just a family joke. A joke? My daughter has been in a relationship with your esteemed major shareholder's son, with the intention of marriage. So what happened just now was just a minor incident within the family. Seeing the man who had been mocking me suddenly change his tune in front of those he had ridiculed, I unconsciously let out a sigh. I was astounded. Such poor grace. I firmly spoke up to Carly's father, who had started making desperate excuses. No, I was dating Carly, but we never intended to marry. Moreover, she clearly stated she wanted me as a housekeeper, not a husband, after marriage. She even wanted me to quit my job. Carly, panicking, started to deny her past behavior.
No, that's a lie, Judas. I love you and want to be your wife. Believe me, Judas.
It's too late for anything you say now. Words once spoken can't be taken back, and time past can't be rewound. Any small affection I might have had for you has long since dried up. Even if you now profess your love for me, an intelligent woman like you, who graduated from a top university, should easily understand it's futile.
But I want to be your wife. I'll quit my job. I'll be your housekeeper. Please marry me. Marry me right now.
Startled by Carly's sudden outburst, I wondered what to do. She had wanted me as a housekeeper for her career, and now she seemed to have lost track of her own words. As I pondered this, Mom slowly entered the conversation.
I'm sorry, but I don't think you're suitable to be my precious son's wife. What? Why, mother-in-law? I want to be Judas's wife so badly.
Mom, clearly exasperated, spoke gently but firmly.
You see, the reason I have so much money is all thanks to Judas. He has worked hard and sent me a lot of money, allowing me to invest in companies I like and deposit money in trustworthy banks. He's done so much to ensure I never have to struggle for money. It's sad to think that someone who belittled such a wonderful son could become his wife. But mother-in-law... I'm not your mother-in-law, but I'll give you a piece of advice. Real rich people don't flaunt their wealth. It attracts the wrong kind of attention. And hiding wealth often reveals people's true nature, just like you.
The three of them collapsed in defeat in front of a smiling Mom. Months have passed since then. Carly's father, while not fired, is now rumored in the company for his disrespectful behavior towards a major shareholder, working uncomfortably. Carly's mother has been ostracized by her social circle after one of the party guests spread her rude comments among the elite mothers group. Carly herself, marked by the branch manager and now off the promotion track, has been shunned by men due to her unpleasant personality. As for me, I continue to enjoy a relaxed life with Mom, and just the two of us. Of course, my ties with Carly are completely severed.
Judas, do you lack judgment in choosing partners like me?
What would you do if that were true?
It's troubling. I want to see my grandchild, but I don't want you to struggle like I did.
Mom, deep in thought, doesn't yet know. In fact, I've recently started seeing someone new, and I plan to introduce her to Mom soon. Moreover, she doesn't know that my new girlfriend is already expecting our child.
Should I give up on seeing my grandchild?
As Mom sighed, I had to restrain myself from grinning at the thought of her surprised face. No need to give up.
What?
A good wife will come along.
Really?
Watching Mom laugh, I felt genuinely excited for the future.